Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's just good stuff. Check this out, okay? The word for the Garden of Eden, Kedem. Numerical translation, 144. Now the value of tree of knowledge, all right, in the garden, right? Eitz HaChaim, 233. 144, 233. Now you can
Those
take
are
those
Fibonacci
numbers. So the
You know, like the Fibonacci sequence.
Fibonacci.
Fibonacci is an Italian mathematician in the 13th century. If you divide 144 into 233, the result approaches theta.
Theta?
Theta. The Greek symbol for golden ratio, golden spiral.
Wow. I never saw that before. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And joining me today is someone who I follow on Instagram, and you should all be following this man right here, Arum Natsorkang. Did I say that correctly?
Arum Natsorkang. I'm glad to be on the show.
Arum Natsorkang. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you are a linguist. That's what you would call. That's your thing, right? Linguist.
Yep, I study a specific branch of linguistics called historical linguistics, which analyzes the way that languages evolve over time.
Yeah, and you couldn't. That is exactly what you are so incredible at explaining. The evolution, like you do a lot of videos on just one word, showing like the oldest sounding of that word that we can find, or maybe a reconstructed form of it. And then kind of go through the evolution. And I'll give some, let's even show them. Well, first, I want to show them you singing Homer's Iliad in dactylic hexameter verse.
Yeah.
So this is so good. I'm just going to play this real quick, and then I'll put on some other examples and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, we just like threw this together real quick, and it was a lot of fun.
I like the digamma.
Yeah, digamma. I had so many people asking about that.
By the way, I got into a back and forth. I wouldn't say it was like a heated discussion, but it was kind of like someone was kind of poking at me a little bit. And I looked at his profile on Twitter, and he looked like a scholar. It was some sort of scholar of Greek or classics. And he was basically saying, because I was talking about practicing the Iliad, because the person who's teaching me Greek, we're going through the Iliad and trying to do we're trying to learn. He's showing me how to do dactylic hexameter. Yeah. And I was pronouncing it, and we were adding the digamma. Mm-hmm. I thought it'd be interesting to like throw the digamma in there and make it sound more archaic. And the guy on Twitter was like, that's not a correct reconstruction of Homer. There would be no digamma. That's wrong. And I just wanted to know, what do you think about that?
So first off, we need to sort of throw the obvious in the air, which is that we don't know what the Iliad is.
That's what I said. Yeah. Okay.
It is the idea. Like, we have no idea if this is the results of a poet that was literate, that wrote the poems himself. We don't even know if this was the work of one poet, or if this is something that happened to be collected over hundreds of years and then subsequently edited and scrutinized by the classical commentators. But something that we can say with a certainty is that regarding the metrics of the dactylic hexameter, some of the lines simply wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the addition of a consonant that would make one line that was at a previous point like metrical. Now it's not metrical because you dropped this W sound. A really good example is the word Ilion, the town of Troy. Itself, it would have had the digamma at the very beginning, but its loss has resulted in some lines being unmetrical. So, for instance, there's this one, I can't remember the full line, but the beginning it goes apses Ilion, so like within Ilion, within Troy.
Within Troy, yeah.
But apses Ilion is not dactylic hexameter. The S is not supposed to be short here. It's only by adding the digamma in William. It's apses William.
That's what I was told by the person teaching me. If you add the digamma in certain places, you can actually make it. You can make it sound more like a word than just saying like "oh" or something or "whoa."
There are some lines in the Iliad and the Odyssey that actually become unmetrical if you add the digamma, and so that's a point against the argument then. Well, I would say it's actually a point in favor of the fact that these poems were collected at different points in time.
Got it.
And that some phrase, no worries.
Just for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, digamma is a w sound in ancient Greek. Go ahead.
It's a letter that visually.
What are they talking about?
It's a letter that visually represents an F sound that isn't used in modern manuscripts, because by the time that the literary tradition of the Greeks was fully standardized, digamma was no longer a sound that was used in the languages, and as a result, it wasn't represented in the spellings either. But with regards to the Iliad and the Odyssey, these poems have been sung, and well, I mean, I would say that the poetic tradition of Troy precedes Troy, of course, because you need to have an existing poetic tradition in order to do that. And so these phrases, these words can go back almost 7,000 years ago, all the way back to the ancient Indo-Europeans with, for instance, Klevos Nkwiton, the fame undying that we see in not only the Iliad, but in other pieces of Indo-European literature like the Rig Veda.
And you also have the name Alexander showing up in these old Bronze Age, and that's the name of Paris. Paris is Alexander.
So Alexandros, this is actually the very first Greek name in the records that we have. At least I'm pretty sure.
Cuneiform, that's crazy.
Yes, so
you're not used to seeing Greek in cuneiform like that, These were written
by Hittite scribes that were trying to establish various peace treaties between the kingdoms of Hattusa and their subsequent states, one of which being called Wilusa, or an alternate name is Troyas. And so these are reflecting cities that were actually continuously inhabited even as far back as the Neolithic period. And so if you look, for instance, at the sort of archaeological crust of this historic city in the coast of what's now Turkey, you actually see multiple kingdoms. And I think it's actually what is it called? I can't remember the Turkish name for that town anyways, but it's layer 3 of the archaeological level that is believed to have been the historical Troy.
And talking about Troy?
Yeah. And this would have been, again, the era of this Alexandru, and also of his father, Priamayus, or Priam. And this actually corresponds very well with the dates that Thucydides gives for the dates of the Trojan War. So he says that it basically corresponds to around 1200 BCE. And
Apollo is their local god there. He's the protector of the city, and they found this Apollonius god there, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. That makes it more, the Iliad has more archaeological credibility than the Torah does.
Well, we have to also sort of remember that we can get a lot of information out of scantily few references, and we can actually get not a lot of information out of a lot of different references. Right. It's not necessarily about history being a set of facts that then automatically lead us to the conclusion that they do. We have to remember that every historical inference is exactly that. It's an inference. Right. If I want to be an asshole, I can even say that we can't prove last Thursday happened. Yeah. And so we have to sort of realize that we're, by analyzing history, we're sort of having or putting our trust in sources or in interpretations that we can't ever fully know. And so when people try to say that, like, oh, it's like we can't ever truly know what ancient languages sounded like, I'm like, we can't truly ever know anything, dude. So, like, shut the fuck up and listen to these goblins, bro. Like, I don't even, like, I don't get it.
So true.
I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way history is. And that's just being responsible as a historian and having good methodology and knowing that there are things we can't know for certain. There are things that are high probability. Like, we have a coin of Julius Caesar. Like, it was minted by somebody in the time of Julius Caesar. Like, is there probably a guy named Julius Caesar that existed? Like 99.9%. Like, is it possible that someone could have faked this whole history and minted coins and made it all seem like it happened? It's possible, but come on, is that really the likelihood?
The thing with coins is that this is a really good example of scanty references actually providing massive proofs for something, because the development and minting of coins implies an infrastructure wherein those coins are minted. They don't just appear out of thin air, unlike the words on a page. And so that provides much more evidence than the literary lives of Homer, which are almost certainly made up, because Homer was probably a made up person. He's sort of like the personification, if you will, of the oral.
Isn't his name mean like blind something, like that would match up like with a seer, like a blind seer, or is that one of the etymologies of his name or something?
So the word Homeros is a general Greek word, and I think it actually means servant. There's actually no reason for why we would there's no reason for us to consider Homer was blind. The only reason why people think that is because in the Odyssey, when Odysseus goes to the Phaeacians, and after they spend all the time performing games, they go back to the palace of the Phaeacians, and there's this blind poet that talks about the deeds of Troy. And
it was a trope. It was an ancient trope that poets and bards were blind because they were seeing through the muse or whatever. It's
I would say this is actually a reverse situation, where it's because of the fact that people thought that Homer was that blind bard, right? And so they assumed, oh, Homer must be blind because this random poet in the Odyssey was blind. And then you have the cultural norm of seers being blind, which comes from that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's kind of like with chivalry, and also like the Bushido Code, in which you have literary tropes sort of enacting real world mental changes and cultural norms on a population. So it sort of goes from this weak sauce version of the real life thing to then the literarily enhanced version. And then this literarily enhanced version becomes disseminated throughout the culture. And so that's sort of what we see here with Homer being blind, is that it's sort of like this sort of sedimentary buildup of different traditions that sort of impersonalize themselves into this one guy. When in reality, the oral tradition was contributed by hundreds, an endless amount of bards over centuries and millennia across different sort of Greek dialects.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I want to show some people some of your some of the cases where you take one word and show the evolution of them. You do it. Actually, real quick, this one video you did about this old book is so cool with Lucian.
Yeah, isn't it?
This 300-year-old book for my birthday.
No worries.
Of Lucian in both Latin and Greek. Now, Lucian is a 2nd century satirist writing in what's now Syria in the Roman Empire, during what's called the Second Sophistic Movement, which sort of emphasizes the use of both classical language and genre.
It really is.
His native language was likely Syriac. He's one of the most prolific authors we have in ancient Greek, writing in genres ranging from comedic dialogues and early science fiction, even on historical theory. How exactly do you present the past? Not only is the book itself in perfect condition with its vellum cover, but the prints and pages are just of an immaculate quality, not to mention the text itself. Right here you have the original Greek alongside a Latin translation done in 1743 by Tiberius Hemsterhuis, a Dutch philologist, which not only includes extensive notes in Latin, but also Greek scholia done by classical commentators hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 years ago. The Greek text also contains various ligatures or word shortenings that look very pretty on the page, and I'll go and demonstrate it by reading a passage here. Not only that, but there appear to be handwritten notes in Latin by a previous owner that are scattered throughout all of these pages. So yeah, best fucking birthday present ever. Thank you, my love.
I can find like the printed version of these. I can find the scholia. I can find the notes, but the actual handwritten notes here are insane. I actually went down a rabbit hole earlier today where, okay, so the note that I showed there, it was basically talking about how it was an addition to the notes that were already there, where it was talking about a passage in the Lucian dialogues where a verb is omitted, but it's implied in the meaning of the sentence. And so the original notes, the printed notes, were talking about that. And then on the side, there was a handwritten note in Latin, basically saying, on this formula wherein you don't have to put in a verb, see page 17 of Reitz's De Actione Inclinatione. And so I managed to find the book that he's referencing. And so it led me down like a massive, like sort of rabbit hole in terms of the resources that people back in the 1740s sort of used in order to learn Greek and Latin, which I'll go and tell you right now, it was literally hell. Literally, people, the way that people learned Greek and Latin and the way that people learn Greek now in Greece is so unnecessarily difficult.
Really?
Yes, because it's done on what's called a synchronic level, meaning that the language is taken as a single individual unit. And so any sort of irregularities that you see with nouns or in the conjugation of verbs is seen as like a little quirk of the language. But in reality, most, if not all, linguistic like irregularities can be explained by looking at how these forms evolved over time. And so if you sort of take this diachronic instead of a synchronic approach, wherein you take in the history of these various suffixes, then it makes a total world of a difference in terms of trying to understand it. But people just don't learn it like that for some reason. I guess the reason is probably because you would have to know like Greek and Latin and Sanskrit and Hittite already in order for this to make any sense at all whatsoever. So
you think that? Do you think it's better, like Luke Ranieri, we were talking about Luke Ranieri, he thinks it's better to just start trying to read it rather than learning like, what is the nominative and what is the genitive and rather than learning all the lingo and mumbo jumbo, he thinks you should just jump in to start reading it and learning like that. What do you think about that? What is your thoughts on that?
So I'm not going to go and say whether or not that's an effective method. I'm not a capable judge because he reads better Greek and Latin.
He's a good reader, yeah.
So he certainly he must know something. But I would say that my experience with learning the language came about from a very specific set of circumstances that I don't think should be prescribed on other people, because I knew about the grammar before I learned any aspect of the language. I learned about like the historical development of all of the sounds in the language, all of like the grammatical particles. And this was just from me, like, comes from me forming all of my arguments against Greek people online for why I pronounce things the way that I do. And with
that's
that,
how it always is. You know, it's always just trying to brush up your own arguments, and then you learn a bunch of shit.
and so with that, I bought a whole bunch of different sort of Greek grammar books before I ever picked up a Teach Yourself Greek book. Like,
Yeah.
And so I would say that the only reason why I have the understanding I do is because of a lot of unnecessary sort of baggage that I'm bringing with, where I tend to like extremely overcomplicate like literally everything, where instead of it just being like, oh, it's a fun little quirk, it's like, actually, and I pull out like a massive whiteboard of like red thread and like pointing
But you bring
arrows.
the nuance though. That's what I love. You bring the nuance, because everyone. This is one of the things I can't stand about like just like the humanities in general, and how amateurs deal with scholars and in between. Was there can be a scholarly consensus, and it's like scholars believe X about the past. But then there's like, and then what happens is like people like myself, amateurs, they learn about this from the scholars, and then it gets like spread around the internet. People all of a sudden are learning. Cool, we're all learning what the scholar consensus is. But then there's a lot of nuance involved, and there's a lot of competing scholarly theories that are on different with different answers to things. And then when someone brings up those, well, this one scholar thinks this, they'll go, that's not the consensus, and it's like. But there's a lot of nuance involved. Like there could be some truth in the middle of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like not always what the scholar consensus is like going to be always the truth. You know what I mean?
So I think I think the underlying theme of all of these is that I, as a scholar, understand the arguments that they are trying to give me, but they don't understand the arguments that I am trying to give them, because
well said.
And so this comes down to me like I have to like literally like establish for them like a basic understanding of how linguistic evolution works, because I can't go straight into systematic sound change if you don't even know what that is,
right
know?
And they'll say that's reconstructed, but show me evidence, show me the textual evidence.
But the thing is that's the main thing, is that they really think that scholars are just guessing.
Right.
And that's about like when I go and ask them about the methodology, what do you mean by how do you think the scholars do it? And they just don't know. They actually don't know what the scholarly consensus is. And so I would say
isn't that funny?
It's more so a case of the scholarly consensus is X, but then amateurs will look at the scholar like the effects of X and then develop Y. And say, that's another
scenario.
Is Y.
That's another scenario that happens a lot. Yes. Yeah.
And so this is what I see literally all the time, especially with Greeks who have this sort of underlying assumption that the Greek scholars, like the actual scholars of ancient Greek phonetics and all of that, like for some reason agree with them. But then when I go and pull up like screenshots, because I have Greek books on ancient Greek, right? Because they won't accept English or Germanic sources. And so, but that's fine. It's whatever. But when I go and pull up these screenshots where it's Greek scholars saying this stuff, then all of a sudden, they're not too quick to respond anymone
Well,
so I wonder why that is.
Here's a comment right here that's from an anti-Indo-European. Greek is the mother of all. I want to hear. I think I saw this one, but let me just make sure. Let's just play it for everyone else to see, and we can kind of explain what we mean by Indo-European. And this is a good example, the mother one too. We'll play that next.
I think the funniest thing about these Greek is mother of all languages comments is that they have no idea what that means, because English actually has some aspects of pronunciation and grammar that are more archaic than any variety of Greek. Let's compare the English word sun with the Greek helios, which means the same thing. They also derive from a common ancestor word in Proto-Indo-European, but what sound did that word begin with? Was it a s sound like in English or a h sound like in Greek? Well, if we compare the Latin and Sanskrit cognates, sol and surya, we find that it's Greek that's the odd one out, undergoing an innovation in which original s becomes h. So in that regard, English pronunciation is more archaic. Now let's talk about grammatical endings, specifically the third person ending z, like in he bears. This goes back to a Proto-Indo-European ending d that we find preserved in Sanskrit d, as well as Hittite z. Now, Greek forms a subsect of Indo-European languages that don't have this ta sound in the third person singular. So pereti, he bears, would be pere in Greek. So although that D ending wears away into just Z in English, at least the consonant is still preserved. So in that regard, English is more archaic. You can't imagine a system in which English comes from Greek and yet has all these things preserved. Like, how does that even happen? It doesn't.
Oh.
I think the funniest thing.
Okay, one more real quick. I just want to play this next video because the word mother and mater and meter, you can this is a really good example of like where first of all, where do people even come up with the idea of Indo-European? And I think this is a perfect example of where this idea is even come from a lot of these older 17th century scholars that were discovering this.
Mother, mater, mater, mata, moteres, mehter, tir, dakruma.
Oh yeah, keep going.
Dakru, astrum, der, dakru, ni, genu, gonu, janu, zveno, gonu, cow, bos, bos, gauch, geviada, guos, corn, granum, zirnis, grura, gernom, milk, mulgeo, blith, amelgo, hmelgeti, night, nox, nux, nak, nata, nocts, work, ergon, warzam, gorts, vergion, star, stella, aster, sta, ser, haster.
Wow.
Mother.
Okay, so now this kind of goes back to what you were just saying, is like we're not just scholars aren't just guessing. There's a methodology. We first of all, we're noticing a pattern. So the scientific method is like we're noticing something, we make a hypothesis. Maybe there was a language before all this. And then you test out that theory. But as this theory developed, there's now a process involved of how you reconstruct these words. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
So let's go and talk a little bit about the ideas that formed in terms of how to explain these connections before our formal like declaration that it must have come from a common ancestor, because it's like I said, the facts don't lead to just one solid conclusion. So for instance, in late antiquity, there were many Greek sort of philosophers that were, intrigued by Latin. The Greeks have a very, sort of native versus barbaros sort of mentality. And so to find out this language that's not quite wholly barbaric, yet not quite wholly civilized, what place does this have in relation to Greek? And so they basically said that it derives from an Aeolian variety of Greek. And so
does that sound like it holds up at all? Or what do you think about that theory?
So I would say it's interesting that they choose the Aeolian dialects out of all of them. And it's probably because the word for mother in the Attic or the Ionic dialect of Homer is mater with two etas. It's a long sound. But in the Aeolian dialect, it's mater with a long alpha. Yeah.
Oh, I can see why they thought that then.
And so, yeah, you can see that they have these like sort of surface level similarities. And this is the sort of underlying philosophy about how linguistic evolution works, continuing up until around like the mid 1800s, where it's like, oh, we have these surface level similarities in the pronunciations of words. Therefore, it must have come from that word. What was the process for how it came to be that word? I don't know. And so that's kind
of where they were at back then.
It wasn't really until 1799 that this guy named William Jones, made this big declaration. He was an Anglo-Welsh scholar, and he was actually deployed in India in the British Raj, and he had an opportunity to learn Sanskrit, being also a man that knew Greek, Latin, and English. And so he had these this sort of four-way connection. And so he sort of made this big declaration in front of all these scholars. Oh my, it's honestly a meme at this point. Any historical linguist can recite this to you. The Sanskrit language, be whatever its antiquity, is of a wonderful structure, more euphonious than the Latin and more harmonious than the Greek, yet bearing a structure that is more perfect than either, yet bearing such similarities that no philologer could say that these came about by coincidence. And yeah, no, it's actually like but it showcases the state of linguistics, which by then like didn't exist.
Yeah,
linguistics did not exist before.
That's the beginning of it, right there. You just found the Adam and Eve of linguistics was this guy right here.
But of course, this was a claim like many others that would make like similar claims. How like like all these languages actually come from Hebrew or from Dutch or something like that. And so now we have to actually get into the methodology. And that's where we get into stuff like Grimm's Law. Now, that is the same Grimm as the compiler of the fairy tales. Jacob Grimm was also, I mean, you can see the collection of fairy tales and folk literature. It ties
there's our
very
ancient
well.
Indo-European mythology behind a lot of those stories.
Oh yeah, and so, but Jacob Grimm, what he noticed is that not only do the words sound similar, but there's a pattern that you can see. So for instance, between Latin and Greek P and an English F. So the word first in English, the cognate is primus in Latin and then protos in Greek. And then it's also praya in Sanskrit, I believe. Don't quote me on that Sanskrit one. I could be thinking about the root for beloved, but yeah. So you have this then you also have like foot, then bos, and then bous in Greek. So you have this cognate, not only the cognate words, because that's not actually what we're looking at here. We're looking at the cognate sounds of a language, because it's not the words that change over time, but the system of sounds that a language has, which then applies to all of the words that have these affected consonants. So it's not as though, for instance, like foot like changed its P to an F before first did. Both of them went from P to F at the same time. Really? So that's sort of what we call, a systematic sound change, where it's changing all of the P's to F. And so that, alongside the additional sound changes of t to th, like in rodont, the word for tooth, and then dente, and then odonta, I believe, in Greek. But
so how would you reconstruct that into a Proto-Indo-European word? If those are your three words that you got, what's the rule you go? Isn't there like a sort of rule you go by?
This is so it's something called the comparative method, where basically we're looking at all of the cognate words and we're seeing the commonalities that we see, right? And we see, okay, what scenario can we imagine in which it would give us the results that we do, right? And so it's much more likely that P became an F, and that was just like a thing that defines English, or like the Germanic language.
Well, it's the same part of your mouth that makes that. So you could see how those two letters would be related like that.
But the question is, which was it originally? Was it originally an F sound or a P sound?
Sure.
And so we not only have to look at the other cognates and see, okay, well, Greek and Latin have this P. Therefore, it's much more likely for English to be the odd one out than for English to preserve it. And then you have Latin and Greek develop this sound change. Again,
at the same time. Yeah.
Independently of each other as well. They undergo the same sound change. And then,
that's a good point. I never thought about it that way. Wow.
You also have to think about the physical mechanisms, like you said, of the mouth. F to P is not nearly as common in the sound changes of the world as P to F. We see P to F much more often. Oh, I see what you're saying.
The other way around. Okay.
And so we're very fortunate to be able to use the way that other languages have evolved over time as a sort of baseline reference for which sound changes are more likely than others. And so if we're having a hard, maybe the situation is not so obvious. Maybe we only have the Greek and the English cognate. We don't have Latin or Sanskrit. We're only comparing these two words. Which one do we choose? There's no clear majority. We can rely on the mechanisms and the other sound changes that other languages go other time to say, okay, well, since P to F is more common, it's more likely to be that. And so that's sort of where we get our
and then you
conclusions
can see
from.
You can see some words in in Sanskrit make a what is it? It's the you have soma haoma. So an S can go to an H somehow.
So that is one. So the like Greek. So this is actually an instance in which two Indo-European languages underwent a common sound change. So do you remember in my video about the word for sun, the Greek underwent a unique sound change in which that S sound becomes H, right?
Yep.
Well, that's a defining feature of the Hellenic languages, right? But then over in Indo-Iranian, right, Proto-Indo-Iranian, the common ancestor of Avestan Hauma and then Vedic Soma, does have that S preserved as well. And that S is preserved in the Vedic Sanskrit word Soma. But then you have another sound change with Avestan that defines it, where again S becomes H. S becomes H is also just a very common sound change. And so that's not surprising. And
is it
so,
like sh and then sh in the middle of those two, maybe? Is there
in the sound change, in the examples that we see in real time of S becoming H, there are many different sort of transitionary stages that it can become. So sometimes it becomes like sa, hya, ha. Sometimes it becomes sa, sha, sha, ha, ha. And so it can take a different sort of path as it goes from what's called the alveolar ridge, or that ridge above your teeth where you pronounce like your tuz and nuz and suz and what have you. As that goes from that ridge to the glottis as a h sound, it can take many different paths.
Yeah, I'm trying to find one of those examples you give of the evolution of one of these words. You do them quite often, though, right? Like you have like a word where you just kind of show like the evolution of it.
Yeah, there's one up there. Evolution
here?
of.
Oh, here we go. This one.
Yeah.
Or this one.
But either works.
Okay, I'll play this one.
The evolution of the names of wet things. Water, wedor, wador, wator, watar, water, 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 water,
Wow.
water, water.
Now, how much time was that? 5,000? Okay.
It was 7,000.
Oh, wow.
Size, sai, sai, sa, sa, say, see, see, see. Deities, deities,
Oh, wow.
deities, 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 deity, deither, deida, deed, deed, tide, tide, tide. Stromos, stromas, 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 stromaj, stroma, stroma, strom, straum, straum, stram, stram, stream, 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 stream.
That's crazy.
Stream. The evolution of the
I want to do one more. I want to hear one more of these.
The evolution of the names of animals.
No worries.
Buxios, buxias, buxas, fuxas, fuxas, fuxaj, fuxar, fuxa, fux, fux, fox, fox, fox.
Wow.
Capugos, capugas, hapugas, havugas, havugaj, havuga, havuk, havuk, hauk, hawk, hawk,
Oh.
hawk. Brogo, brogo, frogo, frogo, froggo, frogga, frogga, frog, 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 frog. Guns, 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 guns,
Yes.
gos, gos, gos,
Ghost.
goose, 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 goose. The evolution of the names
Wow.
of
So as you can see, this is also a very important point to make, is that surface level similarities can only take us so far, because as you can see, the evolution of words, they can really just like totally change on you.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so you can't just always be relying on the words not only sounding similar, you also have to analyze the sound correspondences too, if you want a truly scientific comparison.
Yeah.
Because
Bro,
they can
Steve-
end up, yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Because again, these sound changes can just like totally obfuscate like the origin and like the original pronunciation.
Yeah, because that first Indo-European reconstruction almost sometimes looks like not even recognizable to what we say today. And sometimes you wonder, how do they even come up with this? And then when you see the actual evolution, you go, oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
This is Stephen, he's the one teaching me Greek right now.
How are you?
And yes,
Kalimera.
we both went to this church, by the way, and so did you.
Yeah,
so,
no, it was a lot of fun.
This is the church that was I think it was 11th century. I think they said it was. Is that what they said, Stephen? 11th century? You're muted. You're muted.
No, still. You might need to go and like reconnect it on like your laptop itself, not on just the program.
Yeah. Just come back when you fix that. But yeah, let's play. Let me just. I'll play this video while we're waiting for him.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the Greek text that I found on this church when I was in Athens a few weeks ago. Mwah. On either side of Mary, you have what are known as nomina sacra, or sacred names, which are
Easter
common
in this
enough
church,
words within
Pascha.
Christian literature to be abbreviated, such as Mitir Theou, or Mother of God, with Mitir being reduced only to its mu, tau, and rho, as well as Theou being reduced only to the theta and upsilon. And then on the far left and right sides, you have the phrase "ton thrivomenon ichara," which means the joy of the afflicted. Now, thrivomenos means the afflicted, coming from the verb thrivo, which means to afflict. And then chara means joy. It's where we get greetings like here, which means be well. It's a command. It's those small little churches like that are just like insanely innocuous places out in public, surrounded by modern buildings. That was probably my favorite part of Greece.
That was awesome.
Being able to go in and see all of the beautiful mosaics that have survived for hundreds of years, and seeing all the little like Greek text. Oh, it was amazing. I loved it. Let's take a look.
By the way, that church that you just talked about, me and Stephen we attended Pascha and another, the one before Pascha, was built on top of an ancient temple of either Athena or Demeter. They didn't know which one it was. They just knew it was an ancient Greek goddess.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome.
So that's a very, very nice spot that you had there.
If you don't, just a small aside, what's really interesting about, because the layers can go really deep when it comes to old temples. Most recently, earlier last year, there was a Roman temple that was actually underneath a Greek temple that was the Roman temple was above the Greek temple. Then the Greek temple was above this Minoan temple. And in this Minoan temple, there was actually a scepter. This was literally discovered in like March of like 2025. The longest linear A inscription was found. 125 characters. And no one, like I was pretty much
know linear A.
Well, no, because like I was like the only person that was like really making headlines about this.
Really?
Because like no, this was just like sort of tucked away in like.
It happens all the time with ancient Greek stuff. Sometimes it's weird. Whenever there's anything with the Bible, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
it's like a 200 AD inscription that mentions Jesus. Oh my God, it's so old. It's
that's also fake or misinterpreted or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, and that makes headlines. But like a 2,500-year-old linear A inscription, and it's like no one cares.
It's the longest one too, and it's the longest one by a lot as well.
Yeah,
it's almost 3 times as long as our previous longest inscription. But
that's
insane. I mean, it all the people just don't read it. Well, they can't read it. And
that's what I'm saying. Is anyone even trying to crack linear A right now? What's going on with that? Does anyone know?
So there are, as far as I know, there are actual decipherments of individual words. Like I think like the word for wine was actually originally a Greek loan word, assuming that what we're looking at here is a non-Indo-European language. We seem to find the Greek word for wine here.
In Hebrew, the word for wine is yayin. It looks like a cognate. It looks like a clear cognate with oinos.
Wine, boy.
So yayin within Hebrew has the iota, alpha, yod, alpha, aleph, yod. And it's like, and this is not just me noticing this. There are people who actually pointed out it looks like there were maybe they're trading together, and they're like the word wine coming from people from the north, and they're probably getting it from them. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But that word looks like to be cognate, even though it's a Semitic Afro-Asiatic branch language. And this is in Greek or maybe even
But can you
Proto-Greek.
still hear me? By the way,
Yes, I can. You just blacked out for a second.
I'm just looking some stuff up real quick. But go on. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like even though one's from the Indo-European branch, or maybe even what, as you're pointing out, maybe even pre-Greek, maybe even not Indo-European. I don't know, but I don't know. Yayin, the word Yayin looks like similar to me. I mean, maybe not. But
So I have the best news for you.
yeah,
The best news is that it's not the Hebrew word is not from Greek. The
not.
Proto-Semitic word is from Proto-Indo-European. And
Really?
so this is something that not a lot of people know about, is that the Proto-Semitic speaking peoples and the Proto-Indo-European speaking
how'd you
peoples,
find that in 2 seconds like that?
So do you know what Wiktionary is?
Yeah. Oh, it's on there. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Steven, you're an editor, aren't you, or no? You know an editor? Never mind.
But
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
so-
it's open source.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
a lot of the etymology on
Wik.
a lot of the etymology on Wiktionary is based on Beckus. I mean, at least the Greek stuff.
Oh, okay. So, okay, my bad. I cut you off. What were you saying though?
So there is a lot of what not a lot of people know is that like, for instance, the word for a bowl in Proto-Semitic is thauru, like tauros in Greek.
Oh yeah, that's one of the there's an old book that I have about Proto-Indo-Europeans where they give like 10 examples of words that are so old that they were in both branches of Indo-European and in Semitic. Like there was some sort of trade going on between the two groups at some point, and they have like words that are so old, like agricultural words for ox or something.
The words for bowl, the words for salt.
Yeah.
So the word for salt in Proto-Semitic comes from Proto-Indo-European, and then the Proto-Indo-European word for bowl comes from Proto-Semitic. Either that or it's the other way around, but I'm pretty sure it's that.
Yeah. But that's not that surprising when you see the Indo-Aryans and where they were located in ancient history, and when you see like where Sargon of Akkad and the Semitic speakers were, they're not that far apart from each other. There's going to be some
This is way before even the concept of like the aria. Yeah.
Wow.
This is.
So how did that happen then? It's fucking mind blowing, dude. This is blowing my mind right now.
This is all coming under the underlying assumption that like people just didn't get around as much as we do nowadays. But if you go and look, for instance, in Europe and Eurasia, they had like, take for instance the Amber Road. The Amber Road is a historical trade route that went from what's now like northern Italy, on like the coast of northern Italy, up to like Estonia, that had been in continuous use since like 13,000 BCE.
Really?
And so
13,000 BC?
Continuously used, yeah.
Oh my God. Is this the right one?
Yeah, this is the one, yeah.
So it goes right through Europe, all the way up to the north.
Yeah. And so you can see these trade routes.
So they were more civilized and developed than we think.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're humans just like the rest of us. Yeah. And so we have to, if you don't mind me putting on my woke Marxist hat here.
Go ahead.
We have to realize that technology is based off of labor organization, right? But we're still fundamentally solving the same problems with the same, the 6 types of machines and all of that. People, like the idea of like, for instance, people living in caves is such a gross anachronism of like the complex societies that were going on during the Neolithic. Like they had like whole like houses and like Adobe style shits, and they were getting around.
Exactly.
And so this is just one of many different examples where we see these very ancient sort of trade routes that were happening 3, 4, up to 5,000 years ago. And so it's really just endlessly fascinating.
So you think the word for wine? Yeah. You think the word for wine was just something that was being traded up and down between people, and there's one word for wine and everyone uses it, and that's just kind of what happened.
Well, yeah, that's where you sort of have to start thinking about, the different selections of alcohol and how the ancients sort of named them. So the Sumerians' word for beer is a native term. The Egyptian term for beer is a native term. The Hebrew word for beer is a native term. And so we have to sort of think about wine as being this new player in the game of alcohols in the ancient Near East. And so it would be perfectly sensible for this new thing to not necessarily have a native term, because they didn't have it, at least not back then. And so it makes...
Whoa, I just look at this. I just pulled this up just by chance. Luke Gordon wrote an article on the word for wine in ancient the Caucasus and the wine's origins in the Caucasus and Levant. We were just talking about this. October 2025. This has just happened. By the way, Luke Gordon was just debating, and so he talks about the word wine here. Maybe I'll link this in the
He talks about it in the debate too.
Yeah, involved Dionysus, and that's interesting. But the reason why I'm so blown away that this just came up randomly, I had not planned this out at all, was that he just debated Amon Hillman, who's a total anti-Indo-European, Greek's the mother of all guy. And I actually wanted to get your thoughts on this particular clip. But this is Luke right here.
Oh god, even the way that this is shot, looks like some fucking History Channel bullshit. Oh my god.
It's a big podcast.
Get into it. It's like 2 hours and 36 minutes, I think, is when they get into the Indo-European stuff.
Well, that's why I just wanted to get his thoughts on this idea where that shows Jesus's words. And as a linguist, I just want as a linguist, what is your takeaway from these two arguments? I didn't show him this. He's going at this totally blind, right? You've never seen this before. Okay.
No, I've never seen this before in my life.
So I'm going to play this clip, and I want to get your thoughts on. You could tell me to pause whenever you want, and I'll pause it. Okay, I'll play it until you tell me not to.
Somebody talking about him at a later date,
right?
But when they're writing about him, they're writing about him in Greek because that was the colonial cosmopolitan language, and they want their message to get out.
Okay.
All right. So Jesus was not a Greek guy. He's a Jewish guy. You agree with that, right, Amen? I mean, I guess you already said you don't know who Jesus was.
Greek is not an ethnicity; it's a language. Jesus was a dude.
It's a colonial language.
Greek fluently, and he was in Egypt, so he.
So he said right off the bat, he's already saying Jesus spoke Greek fluently. How do we know that? I don't. Actually, I should let you. But yeah, I just wanted so you can already see where he's trying to go with it. The other guy, Luke, is going with he spoke Syriac or Hebrew or something of that nature. And the Gospels are writings in Greek, and that's kind of where the two positions are. So that's the background of what's going on here. Any thoughts?
I mean, so Alexander. There you go. I mean, that's Alexander the Great. I mean, he was spreading the Greek language as the sort of the high culture, cosmopolitan language, as that first guy said. This is a fact of which there is no contention whatsoever. And so the idea of the Gospels being written in Greek makes perfect sense with this fact in mind, especially considering that Jesus was. I mean, okay, and this is what.
Well, you also have a whole culture in Alexandria of Jews who speak and write in Greek. Philo of Alexandria.
Exactly.
So it's not like this is nothing out of the ordinary.
But whether or not Jesus is a part of this group of Greek-speaking Hellenized Jews is, I think, not as clear-cut as this as Baldy over here is saying. So we've got there's now. I hate to use the unadulterated Gospels themselves as a historical reference, but there is a mention.
We're in good company there. But
there is a mention of the followers or this crowd sort of noticing Jesus's way of speaking as being much more different and being much more rural. And if you look at, of course, the opportunities that Jesus had. Within the Gospels, again, hate to use them as a historical reference, but it doesn't exactly scream like learned man who knew Greek.
Sure.
Maybe he as the cosmopolitan language, maybe he knew enough to say okay, people don't want to know, people don't like this conceptualization of Jesus, but those guys on the corner of the streets where they're just holding up big signs talking about the end is near.
Yeah.
That's Jesus.
Yeah,
that's him. He was kind of an annoying guy, and
then all of the followers are all a bunch of high school dropouts following him around.
And so and so this is in my mind, the historical Jesus, based off of the different things that I've read about him from various scholars, is that this is a guy that was able to read Hebrew, not able to speak it, because that's just not the cultural function that Hebrew had. People didn't need to learn how to speak. It's read. He spoke Aramaic as a native language, and he knew some words of spoken Greek.
Yeah,
not
sure,
not
of course. Like everyone
Greek.
would. I mean, if you're living in an empire where the Greek is the common language, you're going to know some of it. But let's
the Lord's Prayer, for instance, or like the Sermon on the Mount and stuff like that. That would not have been in Greek. That would have been in his country bumpkin dialect of Aramaic.
Yeah, whatever that's Syriac, Aramaic, whatever that would have been.
But I mean, the issue is that like the Beatitudes, and there are texts that come down to us in Greek that look like original Greek texts, like John.
Yeah, because it's written by someone else.
The pun in John 3:3 is that you need to be born again. Yenithi anothen, and that when you back translate that into Aramaic, the pun doesn't work. Like again, born again versus anothen can mean it's a double entendre. That double entendre works in Greek and not in Aramaic. So it's like either that dialogue took place in Greek or the author of John is writing it in Greek. But the idea that it's
I want to get his thoughts on like what he's actually saying about this lama sabachthani thing. And like as a linguist, because this is what his argument here is so mind-blowing that anyone can take this seriously. But I haven't played it yet, so let me just play it for you.
He studied in Alexandria, and he would have been studying Greek, not Hebrew. The question is, why does Jesus or anybody in the New Testament never quote Hebrew?
Quotes Aramaic.
Exactly. And I really wish Luke would have pushed back a little more on this particular part, because they bring up the part that they're going to bring up. But there's actually literally a part in the gospel, and I think it's Matthew, where he says, and then Jesus said in Aramaic, little children get up, or little girl get up, Talatai or whatever. I'll pull that up in a second as I'm playing this clip. And
something that we
just said there's no quotes of Jesus, and that it's literally a quote of Jesus speaking in Aramaic.
Something that we need to also memorize and remember that can be a really, and you're going to be like, what, when I say this? But Hebrew, the word like Hebraios, and I know that this guy on the bottom here is like really cringing at that pronunciation.
No. Hebraios, I don't cringe at any pronunciation, I promise, except for the Baldy.
That word
here it is.
Doesn't refer to Hebrew, the language as we know it today. It refers to Aramaic.
Yeah. And by the way, here this is full stop where he says, "How come Jesus is never quoted saying anything in Hebrew or Aramaic?" It's right here. He literally says "Talitha kumi," and then whoever wrote Mark, it actually says, which is interpreted, I say rise, or whatever, little girl rise. Like that's full stop. You can deny the historical reality of this actually taking place, but you can't deny that whoever wrote Mark is quoting Jesus speaking in his native tongue, which is not Greek.
I don't know. Okay, so another thing about the socio-cultural place that Greek had is that this would not have been the first language of like any of the. So I would agree with Baldy here that at this time, Greek was more functioned as a language than as a cultural ethnic like in-group signifier.
Sure.
So like for instance, as Lucian himself was ethnically Syrian.
Right.
His native
and he wrote
language
in all Greek.
But that would have been as a second language. And so that's where we sort of need
but he
to
was
realize
good at it. He was a second sophistic. He can add a size. He was good. So it wasn't like country Greek, right? Unless you disagree with that.
It was extremely good.
Exactly.
And this is sort of this is the education that this is the educated speech that one would expect from someone that actually studied in Alexandria and was able to access the classics. But if you're just like a Levant person and you are trying to establish Greek as your like spoken lingua franca, then obviously by the nature of it being a lingua franca, you're going to have it be as a second language.
Now, to be fair to Amen, though, he does to sort of back up his argument. I'm just trying to be as fair as possible here.
Yeah,
there is the Gospels that does say that Jesus did go to Egypt. I'm not sure how long. Was he there for his whole 30s? Was he there just when he was a child? I think there's different debates on that. If he grew up in Egypt, was he able to pick up Greek from there? Maybe.
Well, the real answer is that actually Jesus spent all of his childhood in India and learned the Vedic classics, and that's where Christianity really comes from.
That's the
The other side of this being generous to Amen is that he grew up in Galilee, and that Galilee was also
very Hellenized. I visited Sepphoris myself, which would have been the major city. And it's all by that time they already had an active theater right there. Like I'm not kidding. You can walk from Nazareth to this theater in probably less than an hour. That's how close it is. Sepphoris and Nazareth are two hills right next to each other.
But
there was a theater there.
The idea that the historical Jesus would have spoken a little, like more than just a little Greek, is actually not fringe. Like that,
exactly.
Yeah, the idea that his Aramaic words in the Bible that's totally fringe. That's crazy. But the idea that Jesus, as the historical Jesus, would have spoken Greek fairly well, like more than like it's not that out. It's not far out.
And the nature of oral composition renders the trying to get like the exact original words of Jesus to be totally moot anyways.
It's almost impossible at this point. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
But yeah, all right, let's get to his actual argument, though. That's the part I want to get to.
Several times. In fact, the only times in the New Testament, in the Gospels, of course, when Jesus is directly quoted.
How many?
Shifting the goalposts.
Right, because they only quote
at least a handful.
Explain what you mean by that. He shifted the
because
goalposts.
He does this.
In this 3 and 4 or 4 hour video, that is all he does.
Because
for example, Luke Gordon, he told Luke Gordon in this same video, he told Luke Gordon Hebrew did not exist and was invented in the 3rd century BCE. Luke Gordon then pulls up the Ketef Hinnom scrolls. They dated to the 7th century BCE. Pulls it up, shows it on the screen, and then Amen goes, "That's just scribbles. How do you know that's Hebrew?"
That's actually I would have expected like a more sophisticated wrong answer, like, oh, that's actually Phoenician, and the fact that you can't determine the vowels makes it more opaque. But
he should have said something like that, right? Yeah, no, but he just totally just waved it away. I don't care.
Because that's an actual problem that exists within early Hebrew inscriptions, is that so often it's just completely indistinguishable from other Northwest Semitic languages like Ugaritic or Phoenician.
Yeah. Exactly. Good point. So that's another thing. People watching this, keep in mind that the goalpost shifting is insane. It's insane.
And then he literally did it right here, where he was like, "Oh, just show me one. Where does Jesus like even say anything in Aramaic?" And then he goes and
then he provides it right here, Raj.
And a couple of those are ones that we think, right?
We think
maybe Aramaic.
No, they are. It's pretty clear if you know Aramaic that it's Aramaic.
It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
It is.
And we're going to keep going back to this
it's
every
science.
time.
It's science. It's science. It either is clearly Aramaic or it's not.
Okay, you want me to say it this way? It is clearly Aramaic.
It's clearly Aramaic.
Okay, so just for anyone watching, why that happened, Luke is trying to be a responsible, good methodology scholar and saying most likely, because that's how all scholars talk that way. So what Amen's doing is he's gaslighting not just Danny next to him. He gaslights Danny pretty hard, but he's gaslighting his audience into thinking, notice how he was not certain about this. And Amen will do this. He will use that against Luke. Luke's being a good scholar, being very responsible and saying, it's very certain that this, or it's very likely that this. And because he uses that language, Amen gaslights and goes, he's not certain. He's only guessing. But it's like, come on, dude. It's like we're at the 99% percentile.
Notice, if you will, the way the specific framing here is that, like, oh, you're not certain, therefore it's not.
Exactly. Therefore I'm right. Therefore I'm correct. It's so crazy how this gets, but it gets worse.
Sabachthon. Okay. That's when they say.
Let's talk about that.
That's
can
when
we put
they
this
say.
Up? Yeah, Mark 27. Mark 15, I believe, is when Jesus gets quoted saying, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani."
Right.
Can we put that
And
up?
everybody
Mark
says,
15?
oh,
This
it's
is Mark-
Aramaic.
I believe that's Mark 15.
Aramaic, Aramaic.
Yeah,
right?
because it is. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. All right.
I love this.
Yeah. So I have not studied Aramaic, but it's closely related to Hebrew. So just because I've studied Hebrew, I can understand the Aramaic.
Okay.
Because they're like Spanish and Portuguese. They're
Okay.
not that different. And
Got
so
it.
if you
What do you think about that statement, right? You just said about Spanish and Portuguese. Is that a good comparison, you think?
It's a good analogy. Yeah, the common
comparison?
ancestor between Hebrew and Arabic was likely the same distance between. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
cool.
it's a good analogy.
Okay, let's keep going.
study one, you can make heads and tails of the other.
Okay.
So I can tell you what this Aramaic is, and I will break it down for you linguistically. Okay. Scroll down. We don't. Yeah. Okay. This is the Greek, but can we get it in English? I think it's going to be more helpful if we get a translation.
Actually,
Mark,
Greek,
one chapter.
if
over.
you look at the Sabachthon in the Greek,
Let's
that you have
get
to
there.
see the Greek.
Hold on,
This
let's
is
focus on
such
this.
fucking bullshit. By the
Scroll
way,
down,
I
scroll
knew
down,
he
scroll
would
down.
say
It's gotta
that
be-
shit.
I
As
know,
soon as he
I
said,
know.
Like,
It-
let's
no,
just pull up it's just for convenience sake. Like, you're just trying to find this specific passage, bro.
Well, because he's trying to show Danny and Steven, who are there, who don't know Greek, what's going on. He wants to show, you know what I mean? He's obviously whatever, but yeah.
It's when he's on the cross and he cries out his final word. Yeah, a little more. There it is. They even put it in italics. Okay.
Yeah.
Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Okay. They put it in italics. So Jesus is being directly quoted as saying this. And then they have to translate it because that's not Greek.
My God, my God.
Now, this is what's
Why have you forsaken me? So Mark is
writing.
writing in Greek, but he's quoting Jesus saying
So
something
he's writing in
Aramaic
Greek and he's interrupting his Greek to
say something Aramaic.
To say something
Because
Aramaic.
Jesus is saying his final words in Aramaic because that was his native language. So let's break down this Aramaic linguistically. El is God, just like Hebrew. All right. El,
Everyone
Eloi,
knows that.
Eloi. The E at the end in both Hebrew and Aramaic is a first person possessive pronoun that means my.
Okay.
So Eloi is my God, which you can see it's translated correctly there. My God, my God. That's the Eloi part.
In Hebrew, right?
In Hebrew and Aramaic.
And Aramaic.
He's speaking Aramaic and
Fantastic.
not
Good,
Hebrew.
good,
He's
good.
speaking Aramaic.
Okay. So in Aramaic and lemma. what is that?
Yeah. Lama is actually two words that are usually written as one, whether in Hebrew or Aramaic.
Like llama in Hebrew, right? Why?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
lived there, right?
la means for and ma means what.
Yes.
So when you say for what, you're asking why.
Does
that make sense? So lama
Right.
is why.
Okay.
It means literally for what.
Got it.
Ma. Sabachthani, I think this is the most important word here. Clearly, this is your verb. As you can see from the translation, they're translating this, have you forsaken me? Those are the words that we have left in the English there. And that's being translated from the Greek. I mean, the Greek says, my God,
Okay,
my God.
real quick, I just got to pause this because on the screen, he just gave a great breakdown of this El being God and then Eloi being possessive, my God. And he gives a whole breakdown of this, of what this means in Aramaic, breaking down the word. And then the author of Mark literally then says, which means my God. He literally explains it. Now, listen to what Amin says, and then I just want to just listen to Matt.
I'm so sorry. Just real quick, my phone is a little bit of a low battery. Do you mind if I just get a charger real quick?
Yeah. Go.
It's like
Sure.
2 seconds. I'm so sorry.
No problem. And Steven, what do you think about this so far? While he's doing that, I got to fix my light too.
What I think is that this is something I already addressed in the Myth Vision expose from January of 2025, which has gone ignored for over a year now.
Okay, hold on.
Where-
It's floor time now. I'm gonna change the thing to right here. Damn, you can see my big ass floor.
Or
okay, and then unfortunately, I am gonna have to go and disconnect my earbuds, which I was using as a microphone. I'm still hoping my microphone
That's all right.
quality is okay.
It's all right. You're good. I got the. You're
Neil,
good.
can you show us a slide real quick from my screen share?
Yes.
Since we're in a little pause.
Yeah.
So Sabazios, right? Sabazios. This is Phrygian, Thracian deity, right? That is associated with the Greek version of Bacchus, right?
Right.
And so this is Beckus. This is the etymology, right? Like we know that this appears as Sabos or Sabos, right, in the Orphic hymns. And, and it's, Hesychius defines it as equivalent to a Bacchic frenzy, right? And we have the Ewoi, Saboi. We have these exclamations in Greek. So it's not that this isn't a word. It's that the Greeks recognized that this was a foreign word, but they made an association. So sebasmos means piety, but what they considered sabasmos to be a sort of like Phrygian version of this, or a Thracian
Right.
version of this, because for a Greek, they would cry out ewazdo, right? Like that was to cry out in Bacchic worship. And they just thought savazdo was the same thing, you know? So this is where they say eusabeo, right? Like this is the connection that Hillman makes. He doesn't believe that the alpha, he doesn't believe the alpha in that root is meaningful. He thinks it can be swapped out with the epsilon and that they're basically the same word. This is what he's going to argue.
Yeah, let's you're jumping a little ahead, but no, that's helpful.
Let's realize, let's take into mind the nature of systematic sound shifts, right?
Yes.
If we see this change from an original a alpha to epsilon, what was it?
Epsilon. Well, I mean, in the Greek root is seb, and then there's this foreign god that's sab that Hillman wants to claim are the same thing.
Oh no, they're gonna do the fucking it's actually named after a god that no longer.
Yes, let's let him at least say it before we get there yet. Okay, we're jumping ahead. Here we go.
If you were saying in the translation, which is in the parentheses there, right? Okay, so Aramaic has this verb. Now there's triliteral consonantal roots in the Semitic languages, not just Hebrew, not just Aramaic, the Babylonian languages, Phoenician. All the Semitic languages operate on what we call triliteral consonantal roots, which means it's 3 consonants, and you put vowels in the middle of the consonants to sort of inflect the term. Okay, so there's 3 consonants here: S, B, and K. The CH is a chi there in Greek, because in the original Semitic, this is actually a guttural sound, ka, that we don't even have in English, and they didn't have in Greek either. So they're doing the best they can to transliterate this, because Greek has this k that is a chi. It's the letter chi in Greek. So they're doing the best they can to write this Aramaic sound in Greek.
What's the Aramaic letter for the he?
It's a k. It's a kof.
Okay, what does it look like?
Yeah, it kind of looks like a P thing.
Okay,
but it's the source of our Q.
Yeah, it's the kof.
It's the source of our Latin Q, actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because the alphabet wandered from Phoenicia to Greece to the Etruscans and ultimately to Rome, and that's where we get it from. So you have this k sound that the Greeks don't know what to do with, but they write the next closest thing, which is k, which is we transliterate with ch there into English. But that's a chi. That's the letter chi in Greek, right? We can go look at it.
Yeah.
So however you want to pronounce it.
Right. Who cares? Modern Greeks say.
Yeah, modern Greeks, key, whatever. It's
right?
in ancient Greek. That's what's going on there. The Semitic languages have the sound sh, and Greek, as you know, does not have the sound sh. So Greeks could not pronounce the sound sh. They did have the sound s, like a regular s. And so anytime there's
any thoughts on that?
Let's talk a little bit about how the Greeks wrote down Hebrew in the Greek alphabet. There is a passage of the Hebrew Bible. I know it's specifically the prophets, that is written by this like Greek Jewish scholar, where it's basically the whole passages of the Hebrew Bible are written in the Greek alphabet. And
that's in the Psalms. I'm pretty sure, right?
This was like an archaeological discovery. It's not like something that's like passed down in manuscripts.
So it's a transliteration.
It was a transliteration of the Hebrew as it was pronounced at that time. So like early, I think it was like 2nd, 3rd century CE, with the Greek letters as they were pronounced by the 2nd, 3rd century CE. And I would say that with regards to how that is used to spell Hebrew, there's not much difference between this and that New Testament passage. So what we're seeing here is very, very typical. It's not like some like idiolectic spelling made by Mark, is it here? I'm not sure. But he's not just pulling this spelling system out of his ass, right? This is something that we can see time and time and again with different authors throughout antiquity.
By the way, real quick, I'm noticing in the comments the Ammonites, you can see them how they were gaslit by Ammon. They're repeating this guesswork thing. I'm noticing the comment. He was just guessing. Ammon won, and it's because Luke was being a responsible academic and saying it's most likely that this is the case. And like I said a couple minutes ago, Ammon used that to gaslight people to say, look, he's not certain like I am. I'm certain, therefore I'm correct. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out.
They reject Indo-European linguistics and the comparative.
Yeah, he knows this. He knows this. I showed him that, yeah. But yeah, okay, so Go back to what you were saying. You talk about this that source that in the prophets. Yeah.
So the way that the way that the Hebrew written in the Greek alphabet, the way that spelling system works is more or less the same as what we're seeing here. This is, and I just want to establish, the spelling is not unusual, and so any attempt by Amen to sort of nitpick the spelling is going to be met with that, and so this is not unusual at all in terms of how Mark
got it. I see what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I'm pretty sure Amen's going to get to his argument pretty soon. We already know what Luke's saying. We don't have to really. Here we go.
Author of Mark is going out of his way. He doesn't have to do this. He's writing in Greek, but he goes out of his way to say, actually, Jesus said this in Aramaic. And then he quotes the exact Aramaic here.
Well, he doesn't say he says it in Aramaic.
That's Aramaic.
That's Aramaic,
no, but
right?
he doesn't say it's in Aramaic.
Elsewhere.
Did you hear that? Okay, look it on the screen, by the way.
Are you actually for
Well, but
yes, he's
Is
being
this
dead
guy
serious.
for real?
He's being dead serious.
Which means, my God, it means in what?
Right. Like here's what Amen's actually trying to argue. The words in Greek transliteration, Eloi, laba sabachthani, which Luke just explained exactly what it means. And not only did Luke explain where the Aramaic from is, the author of Mark literally writes, which means, my God, he literally tells you what it means. So for Amen to be correct, the author of Mark has to be wrong about his own interpretation. Are we in crazy world right now?
Something else that we need to, and this is definitely for scholars that are more familiar with the phonetic differences between Hebrew and Aramaic. But I'm sure that you can analyze the transliteration that Mark is using here and saying, oh, look at these specific sound changes that are characteristic of Aramaic and not Hebrew. That would be my sort of methodology for determining whether or not this is specifically Aramaic and not any other sort of Semitic language which may appear similar.
And the way Mark phrases this is "oestin metherminevomen," right? It's what it as it is interpreted, right? Like that is what he is saying. So he is interpreting it. He's not saying which means in Aramaic, right? Like if you find a translation that says that, they're being liberal, but he literally says this is how it is translated.
Right. All right, let's hear Amen's argument now.
In Aramaic.
That's Aramaic.
That's Aramaic,
no, but he doesn't say it's in Aramaic.
Elsewhere, there's another quote where he says, in Hebrew, Jesus said.
Okay, but here, he's not saying this is an Aramaic.
Why does it matter if he did?
That's the one I would have just went with to begin with, because it's full stop at that point. But I don't know, for some reason, he wants to argue about this word. But yeah, let's keep going.
Why would it matter if he says it? If it's written if it's in Aramaic, why does he have to say it's Aramaic?
Because it's written in Aramaic is your conclusion.
Okay, go ahead. Argue against me.
It's not.
That's
go
not
back
Aramaic.
to the Greek.
So
go back to the Greek.
Go back to the Greek.
Go back to the Greek text. Let's see. Maybe it's not Aramaic. Is it possible?
Well, it's written in Greek letters.
Is it possible it's not in
I'm all ears.
Aramaic?
I am
Bring
all
me
ears.
The text, right?
Does he actually sound like
scholars entertain discussion, right? It's a museum. Blow it up, Steve, on the verse. What verse was that?
A little further down.
What verse is it?
34.
There are people that actually think that what he said, I don't know if they have to just not know what's going on and just are just rooting for their guy. Like you can't, if you're paying attention right now and you're following everything that's being said by Luke, and then you hear Amen and you think that what he said made sense, I don't know if you have an active brain right now. Or the only other explanation is you don't really know what's being said. This is all going above you, and you're just kind of just like hoping Amen's right because you like what he's saying. That's the only other way. That's the only way I could think someone could come out of this and actually think that what he's actually correct here.
Let's see his explanation.
That's in the 30s.
There it is. It's right above 35.
Yeah, right in the upper middle, right side, right margin.
No, go right.
There it is.
There, stop.
Right up.
Blow
right there.
that up.
There.
That last word.
Right
that last word before the semicolon. And remember, there's your semicolon. Wait, just show me.
That's not a semicolon. That's a question mark.
Yeah, this is a question mark.
In Greek, you write question marks as semicolons.
Right? And who put that in? So Byzantine nerd. The Greeks didn't put that in.
That's true. I mean, all the punctuation is later.
Right.
All the capitalization is later.
Right. And the word spacing.
Crazy that they wrote like that.
Sometimes there's no spaces in the original.
There's no spaces. Okay, Steve. Steve,
blow it up. Fill it in, guys.
Just blow up
that's
that one
as
word.
blown up as I can get.
Is that as blown up? Okay, just this one word, because this is the verb, and to be honest, this is the most interesting of the words. Verb is always awesome.
Oh, sure.
So if this is Aramaic, as you say, this should have really no Greek essence to it.
Why?
It should have.
Pause.
What do you mean by Greek essence?
Because there's no influence.
Go ahead.
Does he know Greek?
Yes. He has a classic PhD in classics.
What is
and
it
he does know Greek
to have a Greek essence?
Because he's connecting it with the root
Saba.
He
Saba.
He thinks it's a combination of Saba, which is sebo, the root sebo, plus chthon, which is like ground. Like
but it doesn't say that. It says kathani. Now he's doing this thing where vowels can just be interchangeable. I guess
he believes that Greek is an abjad, where you can just swap the vowels. The vowels are simply tuning the consonants.
No. The vowels are extremely important.
That's what they're about to argue.
Explain that. Explain that.
Let me give a quick example. So from the ancient Greek word for to carry, pero, the root is per, which has an epsilon. Epsilon is the vowel that's used in thematic present stems like pero. However, the root undergoes what's called ablaut, where the vowel changes to O depending on if it's a derived word. So from the E grade of pero, we get poros, a load, right? And this is in the O grade. And this is how you signify that it's a noun, right? And likewise, from lego, to speak, you get logos, right? And so this is actually this isn't some like fine tuning like bullshit or whatever. It's an actual like very important aspect of the word derivation. It's also the same reason why we have like sing and song. It's the same principle. It's just this ablaut that's changing the vowel in the verb form from e to the o and the noun. So the vowels here are very important. People didn't write these like vowels like willy-nilly at random, right? They knew what their language sounded like.
Yeah, and another thing I noticed with that is there's specific cases where like an eta and an alpha can have some sort of dialectical changing, but it's very systematic when you see that. It's not like an eta here becomes an omega here and then becomes an iota over here. It's very much like it's more systematic than that, right?
Yeah, and there is certainly no sound change that I know of in which alpha becomes epsilon. Or
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's very specific. Yeah.
Let me share a counter example, like just really quick. I have it on my screen.
Okay.
So chthon, right, which meaning ground or soil, can have and you can address this. So chthon can have a cognate chthamalos, which does have an alpha there where the omega used to be. And chame or chamai, right, is also like hamelos, right, low. So there is a shift between omega, omicron, and alpha. It's not that alpha and omega are.
This is getting into some very dangerous territory regarding what's called the A grade of Proto-Indo-European, and I am not a subscriber of A theory. I'm not.
Oh, so what you're Stephen, what you're showing, Stephen, is some entry in Wikipedia, and you're saying that might be debated. You're saying
I would say that the connection with Degom is very clear. I don't think that the explanation is simply a case of the epsilon becomes alpha, or that there was an original alpha in the Proto-Indo-European word. I think, and this could be again but we do see this where and I'm going to be throwing some technical jargon. So basically, syllabic M becomes alpha from Proto-Indo-European to Greek, but sometimes the simple change from syllabic consonant to vowel also includes, by analogy, the consonantal version of that what you would call the vowel. So, for instance, with ktalmos, the alpha being right before the mu might signify that originally this was syllabic M, and then that syllabic M becomes A, and then by analogy, the M is then re-added. Although that's just like a total like whiff theory that I'm just like throwing out there. Don't like quote me on that. I'm not going to be putting this in a scientific paper, but there can be many explanations for E to be A, besides just simply A grade in Proto-Indo-European.
Nice. And by the way, I just wanted to show people there's other examples where that he's literally quoted in Aramaic. So like the idea that
I gave you a cross Bible link in the private chat, so you could pull that up.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to show real quick. The idea that this one particular case is some sort of Greek magical papyri spell, but then in other places when Jesus is quoted, it's actual Aramaic. He's going so far away from like Occam's razor just totally cuts his head off at this point.
The thing you also need to know about the spells of the Greek magical papyri is that they oftentimes come from Hebrew originals.
Exactly. That's what Luke says here. Luke goes, Saba, that's from Hebrew. You'll hear him say it. I think he's about to say it right now, actually.
There's no Aramaic influence on Greek.
There are people who have bilingual.
He just said there's no Aramaic influence on Greek. Saba oath is an Aramaic influence on Greek. All right, we'll just go
with each other.
We have no authors though who are saying, I'm going to use this Aramaism and I'm going to write it out. We don't have
Mark
that.
is just doing this.
Actually,
okay. Well, no, not if it's a quote.
I don't think that's true. I think there are some examples.
We don't have that is because everyone already speaks Aramaic.
Yeah,
and so you have to realize the audience of these early gospels or like the oral accounts is obviously going to be able to tell that this is Aramaic just from listening or reading the gospels themselves.
There's some words, some spices that come from the East that are mentioned in Greek sources. I can't remember exactly on the top of my head that are borrowed from Aramaic and Persian. So there's words in Greek that you find in like Herodotus. I'm just like throwing like some ancient classical sources that definitely are words that come from. I know that for sure. I don't have any examples right now.
But, no, you're completely right. Names of spices, colors,
stuff like that. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, they talk about Saba here.
He's quoting him. Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
it's
so
just a direct quote. It's just a direct quote. You're saying, Sabachthon, is there anything in that looks Greek? If I have read the Greek magical papyrus.
All right. I just got to say, I should print this out and make a poster of it, because as he's making his case for Saba Cathani, right here, it literally says, ho theos mu. It literally says, my God, my God. It's literally explaining what it means as Amon's going, it means this, it means Saba. The Greek literally tells you what it means right here. Yeah. It's like the Twilight Zone episode going on right here.
Now my anus twitches because you can see both the roots for Saba, that worship, and the Chthonian divinity that is.
He's trying to argue that this means worship when Mark is literally telling you what it means.
So
I don't know how clear you need this to be.
So what he's saying that this word Sabachthani is like originally Greek?
It means like the worship of the Chthonian
worship
deity.
Of the chthonic god, like Dionysus or Sabazius, because Sabazius is
the intention, and he believes that this was the intention set by Mark.
Even though Mark literally says right here, "Ho theos mu, este ekatelete."
Well, I would imagine that Mark would probably have been familiar if this actually was Greek. I would imagine that Mark here would actually engage in some overcorrection, where he would have it be more transparently like have the Greek.
Well, here's the thing:
more transparent.
If for Amon to be in the ballpark for me to even take this seriously, because there could be a pun happening here, maybe some sort of like interesting word play going on. But the fact that Mark in the next line down tells you, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Full stop. By the way, this is in the Septuagint. This is in the Psalms. So let me pull that up real quick. Give me a cross Bible link if you could for the Septuagint Psalm. My God, it's the same stuff. So we know where it came from. We know the origin of this word. It comes from the Hebrew Psalm, the original Hebrew Psalm, which gets translated into Greek. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then Jesus is quoted on the cross, citing, do you have it?
Psalm 22.
Yeah. Make sure you show, like, can you show the Hebrew and the Greek? I know you can do that on here.
You want me to pull the Hebrew? Okay.
And while you're pulling it up, I'm gonna let him finish his argument off so we can just get some more of what he says.
The Christing head, the Ion, who is the person inside the synagogues that is pictured on the walls of the synagogues, the god Ion. That is Saba of the Chthon. This is used in magic. Jesus is from the cross using magic Greek. And he's talking about that God that induces that transfer from death to resurrection.
So you can see this is a very inarticulate and very ineloquent person.
Oh, extremely. The only type of people who are attracted to him are like that. They just don't think, they're not thinking, like they just want it to be true. Yeah.
And you notice how he has to go and add like a whole bunch of like supplementary words, like Saba of the Chthoni, even though Chthoni, again, like, why grammatically it doesn't have to be spelled like that? Why is it spelled with an alpha if it's meant to be from like Chthon?
Exactly.
The
magical papyri does have Saba oath, and there's the word Chthon is in there. It's never compounded exactly how it is in Mark. So this would be a example of
him like straight up lying that this is
just completely taking different words and putting them together and making it up.
Yeah.
It's not, that word Saba Chthoni is not in the Greek magical papyri spelled in that way.
No.
He's taking the word Saba oath, which does exist in this magical papyri, and then Chthoni or Chthon, and putting them together in his mind. It's all in his mind.
Yeah, I have no idea where this final iota is coming from. If this is Greek, this doesn't have any Greek essence to me whatsoever.
No.
The only find that we actually find like word final iota is in like the dative singular, and even that as a subscript, and then as well as in like various verb endings. But then it's not going to be,
now look what Luke has, or look what Stephen just pulled up. Yeah. So you have in Psalm, which Psalm is this? I don't see the number.
22.
Psalm 22. Psalm 22, you have the Greek and the Hebrew. So hotheos mu, and it literally says the words in Greek that are quoted in Jesus in the gospel. On the bottom, you can see where it says lamanatse el elet. So like that is my God, why have you forsaken me? And then it says, I'm trying to think where it has the hashakar. Is that what it says? Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, you can see you have the Hebrew on the one side, and then you can see the Greek translation in the Septuagint, and then obviously there's the English there. We know my point is just simply this. There's where it comes from. We don't have to posit that it's some secret Greek magical papyri combination of gods happening when you have Psalm 22 right there. This is end of story. This is the end of the debate. I'm actually surprised Luke didn't bring up Psalm 22, to be honest. Maybe he just wasn't thinking about it. But
and also for the record, Nymphis says that it is the barbarians like Ivarvari, right, who say Sabazian. Like the Greeks don't say that. They say Ewazdein, right? Like they pronounce it correctly with they don't say Sabazde.
Yeah, Amen would just kind of say, "Who cares?" I mean,
well, I wouldn't say that that's all that great of a point either, because the Koine Greek is very country bumpkins. So I don't,
Yeah, but I think that might be a little bit. No, it's not a bad point, but I just think for where Amen's already so far beyond what's even in the realm of possibility at this point. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know.
No, he's, and you can see that his entire argument is, well, they sound similar, and you can see that this is very much so a remnant of the very traditional like analysis of language, where surface level similarities reign supreme, and there's no like, okay, let's say if that actually it does come from that, why is it spelled like that? And are there any analogs that we can see in other magical papyri or other pieces of literature that would support these sort of changes in spelling? But he doesn't mention these at all. He's just like, oh, it's similar to this, therefore it is this.
Yeah.
Well, and this is also, but this text is also showing you the way the Greeks rationalize things that sound similar, right? Because they say, well, they have this god Sabazios, and they
go ahead. Okay.
No, I mean this is what the logic is here. It's like, well, when for us, our Sevasmos is for them, it's Sabasmos because they're worshiping the god Sabazius. It's also kind of a play on words, and it's fun speculation. But I believe for Amen, this would probably be like a canonical text.
Are you sure you had the right Hebrew on there when you were looking at your cross Bible? Because I pulled up clear as day. Yeah, because I just pulled this up clear as day. Eli, Ali, Ali, Lama Sabachthani. There it is right there. Yeah, this is the Hebrew Psalm 22. Now, and one of the Amites is going to clip me and go, look, the Psalm didn't even have it exactly the same. No, it's right here.
The numbering of the Psalms is different in the Septuagint. That's why.
Yeah. So you kind of threw me off there. I'm looking at it like, where the hell is it? But here it is right here. My God,
would he actually respond to you?
If he doesn't really respond to me directly, sometimes he'll talk about things I say, and you can just tell because he'll just like kind of go after it and like talk about people are saying that this is this, and you can just tell. He really tries to avoid me. Like I've tried to debate him on this. He doesn't want to. But if anyone clips that part of me from 5 minutes ago, this is where it comes from right here. Psalm 22, verse 2. Ali, Lama. There it is right there. Lama, right there. The word's right there. It's not from Greek magical papyri. Sabachthani, right there. So there you go.
Well, I mean, obviously, Hebrew is an invention of the 3rd century BCE.
So it doesn't matter. It's from Greek anyway.
Yeah. So did you know that book Hebrew is Greek?
Yes. Oh my God! I forgot. We got to keep going now.
That's
he
his
literally.
favorite.
Yeah. Is this the same part? I think it's in this. Is it in this? No, it's not in this clip. In this debate somewhere, I'll just tell you, he cites that book. And then he told his audience that he knew that guy. That guy was like 90 years old in the 1990s.
It's a little after this. It's at the 1 hour 51 minute mark when he cites it.
Does it? Now the guy who wrote that book
for like 2 hours at a time. That's the crazy. Because okay, let's go in and get one thing straight: is that none of these podcast clips are science.
Yeah.
None of the even what the other guy is doing is not science, because it's not just like everything has to be peer reviewed, right? And like if like this is something that my boy Dan McClellan says, where it's like the reason like people who do online debates, like real scholars publish on journals, okay? And I'm not afraid to be like gatekeepy or like academia-y about that.
No, it's true.
Real scholars publish in journals.
It's true.
Real scholars, journals have peer review.
Yeah, no, that's true. And by the way, peer review also doesn't mean it's true either. It just means that your argument holds.
What if the peers are stupid, bro?
Well, that's the thing. Amen got some of his stuff peer reviewed in a journal, and I'm not kidding. I actually talked to one of the people that was in that journal. It was a bunch of scholars that got together and they wrote about ancient medical text. There's 2 other scholars, and Stephen Ruck is one of them, and the other one was what's his name? What's his name? You met him in LA. The one was with Ruck.
Mark.
Yeah. And they were saying that Amen just kind of got pushed through the peer review without anyone really checking into what he wrote. And if
Mark said that he wrote weird stuff just to see if somebody was checking.
Yeah.
Like he put.
So sometimes peer review is not all foolproof, and there's different levels of peer review. There's different levels of journals. So sometimes some people say this got peer reviewed, so it's correct. No, not necessarily.
The answer, of course, is to be even more gatekeepy and academia.
Yeah. It at least says that your arguments hold enough water that your sources are cited and you're in the realm of what could be plausible. It might not be convincing, but at least you did the right work. But okay, you get what I'm saying.
I mean, so much of Amen's like stuff is basically, it boils down to, and this is another classic McClellanism of it's not impossible. Therefore,
by the way, McClellan when what is that? There's a term in philosophy called when you constantly say the overwhelming consensus is this.
Yeah.
What is it called again, Stephen? When you do that,
appeal to consensus, appeal to
no.
authority.
It's a word. It's called like it's a language.
Ad populum,
I forgot what it's called, but it's if you say that all the time, that's not you shouldn't be saying that every time. Like a lot of times there's a lot of I'm very critical of Dan McCline. I did a video about him where he claimed to be the I'm gonna be the guy that's gonna be calling balls and strikes, and then didn't know who Lucian was. It's like, all right, dude, you don't know who Lucian is. Why are you commenting on 2nd century Greek? But that's a whole other thing. I like Dan for the most part. I think his videos are great. I just think sometimes he doesn't understand the nuances in a lot of these topics. There's a few times where I called him out.
Well, I would say that would just simply be a case of, because he specifically talks about cognitive science, and so if you actually look at like his scholarly literature and stuff, because that's the thing, is that people don't actually read his books. People don't actually read his peer-reviewed stuff. They only respond to his TikToks. And that's another example of where consensus is X, then someone watches, and then it's like, oh, actually consensus is Y.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're doing that, but that's just something that I see a lot when with people, just in general.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure. I'm sure that's happens all the time, where someone just doesn't like what he's saying.
I would say that, obviously cognitive science and 2nd century Greek literature don't like sort of overlap in the most nice of ways, and so that can be. I go and talk about things that on the surface I probably don't. I'm not the most educated on.
It's called weasel words. Weasel words are words and phrases aimed at creating an impression that something is specific, is meaningful, and has been said, when in fact only a vague, ambiguous. So Dan will do this, and I'm not saying Dan always does this, but sometimes Dan will just kind of throw in the overwhelming scholarly consensus is that this X, and then it's like, all right, if you're going to say that, give us some papers on the screen, show us where this is being said, because a lot of times I think he'll throw that in as a weasel word and just be like, oh, the overwhelming consensus is blah 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 blah. Anyways, the thing I called him out on was a few things regarding what was it? What he said. He said, okay, never mind. Let's not even get into that.
Yeah,
but
honestly,
my point is sometimes when we can get a little carried away with that phrase.
Yeah.
But I think he's a great scholar. I'm not, in comparison to Amin, he's a fucking one of the greats of our time. You know what I mean? So I'm serious. Like he is. He's very good. He deserves his success.
Are you gonna play I think this is just social media. We have to like condense our words down into like less than a minute. I wish and sometimes he does pull up papers.
No, he does. That's what I'm saying. For the most part, he does that all the time. And then I think sometimes he just, I don't know.
You just get lazy. I mean, like I get lazy with my videos too. So like I don't think that's like a big point against him.
No, I think you're right.
Let's continue dunking on idiots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so Stephen, what was the other part you wanted to ask him about? Was it something about Amin or something else?
I think you were about to get to the good part where he talks about Indo-European and Amin says.
Was it that same clip or is it a different part?
It's
Can you find it?
Asterisk. So it is the part where he says, so you put asterisks next to things and therefore they don't mean anything. It's really about if you keep playing right where you were, that's where he talks about it.
All right, here, I'll pull it up right now. I'll do a word search for asterisks.
It was right where you were.
That video was almost over. That was like the end of it, that clip. So it must have been, I was playing from a clip, right? I was playing.
Do a word search on asterisk. It's going to pull up on the 2 hour and 29 minute mark. And then that's where that's the continuation of the discussion, which is about Sebomai.
So asterisks?
Yeah, asterisk. I always misspell.
Oh, I found it. Okay, cool. It did come up. I'm glad YouTube has that transcript thing. Yeah. Okay, so let me share is my screen even shared right now or no?
No.
Okay. Here we go.
That base, okay.
Correct.
That's an Indo-European root. That goes back to the Indo-European root tiegu, which is found as far afield as India.
Can you go back 2 seconds so we get more context?
It's right here. You
Put
just
an
said it.
asterisk on that term because that is a back formation. You are guessing. Indo-European is guesswork.
For the 1,000th time, we're guessing about everything.
Yes. So Amen really, really uses this to gaslight people. And because, like, as I mentioned, Luke is trying to be, he's just talking like every other scholar talks. Most likely this is this case. Most likely we believe this. And because Amen knows his audience is not familiar with the way scholars talk, he uses this as a weapon, as a way to gaslight people and go, see, we're just guessing. But what are your thoughts on just what he said there about the asterisk thing?
This is merely a spelling convention. It's able to go and separate it's not necessarily that these are indicated, these are not attested forms, right? And so we can actually, there are the old English word for ball is never recorded, but it's ball, and we know that we can reconstruct it. But that's an example of like a reconstructed word, where a reconstructed word can in fact be a part of a real world language, and we can use the principles of systematic sound change in order to reconstruct it. And so I would say, you know, if you want to come after Indo-European, you're going to have to come after the idea of systematic sound change. And so does he do that? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think so. I forgot what he says right here.
Guessing about everything.
I'm not. These are texts, and I don't want to guess.
No.
I have seen that expression in magical text. That is not Hebrew or Aramaic. There's no guesswork here.
By the way, he just lied. Yeah. If you go to the Greek Magical Papyri, and maybe you could do this right now in the TLG, Steve, you got the TLG. You won't find that expression exactly how it's written. You'll find Sabaoth, and you'll find Kathon, and you might even find them pretty close together. We might find that. But that expression that you find in Mark is never, ever, not one time in the I don't know if he's just, if I can call him a liar for that, but it's basically just a lie what he just said, right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, well, because he's yet to go and explain, like if you want to go, because again, I'm still hung up on this iota, man. How do you explain the presence of the iota? Yeah. It makes sense from a grammatical perspective. It just like ni is not an ending in. Yeah,
exactly. Especially when you find it in the Psalms. When you find it in the Psalms, in Hebrew, actually, not in Greek, but when you find it in the Psalms and it has spelled and it's pronounced that way, whoever's writing Mark is doing taking from the Psalms and putting it in the Greek. So it's just so obvious. Look, there it is right there. Sabaoth.
Well, Sabaoth, yeah. So you see it all.
That's in the Greek Magical Papyri. Yes, we know that. But that's not Sabakathon in one word. So the way that for him to say, I've seen this expression in the PGM, you're lying to your audience. You're lying to Luke's face. You're lying to Danny Jones on his podcast. It's just a lie. It's just not true. Look, he's doing a whole full-blown search right now.
Well, I mean, here I'm searching for Sabaoth, but if I search for Savachthani, what you're going to see is it's
only going to go to New Testament.
Well, no, I mean it's going to be a New Testament and the Christian literature that's built on it, right? So like
exactly,
you can sort by latest, and you can see there's commentary on the New Testament.
Something else that we have to consider. Something else that we have to consider is that a lot of the Greek Magical Papyri is informed by Christian practices. So you'll oftentimes have spells that invoke the name of both Jesus, of Mars, and also of like the Osiris. Like so, Greek, Christian, and Egyptian gods are all being invoked in the same spell here. And so this is you know, Egypt is a crossroads of many different sort of magical traditions that sort of syncretize and synchronize into.
You have Coptic, the alphabet that looks like a fusion of Greek and Egyptian.
Bro, I had the opportunity of learning Demotic Egyptian because like only like 6 people in the whole world could just pick up and read it. I had the opportunity to learn it when I was in Venice for a couple of days. I had to like go on this island. The university was on the island, bro, and I was
crazy.
Scholar maxing, dude.
That's crazy.
So look. Okay, so here's the Greek Magical Papyri. I've run a search and I've limited it to the Greek Magical Papyri, right? Oh wait, no, this isn't PGM. This is Magica. Oh, these are just some other map. This isn't the PGM.
Can you do it? Can you get it to just the PGM, or just whatever you? How many results you?
What is the PGM? What is the PGM called in Papyri? Hold on, Papyri.
Graik.
Is it Graika?
Graiki, yeah, it's like Graiki or something. They're fragmenting. No,
it's in here, but I don't remember what the TLG name for the Greek magical.
I hate how they're so weird with that.
Well,
we should all just go back to speaking Latin, man.
Yeah. But no, even with the search that you're doing, you can't find that phrase. It doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, I can search the whole corpus, you know, Savachthani, and it's going to just give me, you know, New Testament and commentary on this verse in the New Testament, right? Like that's where
it'd be interesting to go and look at some of the early commentaries on how this was interpreted and see if they themselves label it as being Aramaic.
Yeah. That would be game over. That'd be game over. I mean, yeah. But then Amen will just say, "Oh, those are the church fathers. They're being deceptive. That's what they always do. They're hiding it." I mean, he's talking in two ways out of his mouth, or whatever the phrase is, where he'll say the church was condemning these sort of Gnostic, ophite, sexual, orgiastic Christians, and then Epiphanius is fighting against them. That's what he'll say. He'll say like those people are being condemned as heretics. Okay, fine. But then in other places he'll say, "Oh, Saint Cyprian got caught at 4 a.m. with purple drugs in his mouth or something." Yeah. Like, wait a minute, Saint Cyprian's one of the Orthodox guys. Which one is it? Is there two different? Is there an Orthodoxy and a wild Gnostic sex Christians, or are you actually saying that the church itself is doing this? And you'll get two different responses in two different scenarios with Amen.
Yeah,
depending on what situation he's in.
Or being.
No, I was just trying to like copy some text from the Greek magical papyri because I know I'm pretty sure I pulled this from the TLG, but you know I'm having some issues with my TLG account, so it might not actually be giving me access to the full corpus.
Really? That happened to me. That happens to me a lot with this weird website. But but either way, you did it.
Just as an aside, there is actually a Thesaurus Linguae Aegyptii that actually has a corpus of all the Egyptian literature that's formatted in a very similar way. If you guys,
it's for the Coptic or is Demotic?
Demotic and hieroglyphic Egyptian, not Coptic.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And so this is actually, it's a really big trove of the Demotic literature, of which is so very, very.
That's something I've never even tapped into, barely. Like
cursive hieroglyphs.
That's crazy.
What a crazy.
Because it's usually when I meet scholars, usually they have one specific thing that they know, and like Indo-European is one kind of like one branch of linguistics, but you're into Egyptian and you're into all these different branches. How the hell do you do that? Like Egyptian is nowhere near Indo-European, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is I read the book.
By the way, do you have a PhD?
I read the book and I know the book.
Do you have a PhD or no?
No, I
that's even more impressive.
Haven't been to college yet.
That's even more impressive. And you're not the first person I've met that doesn't have formal college PhD or master's who's light years ahead of people that do.
Well, you know, what's funny is
Russell Grimmerkin, who passed away last year, was one of the most well-read biblical scholars I've ever met and had the privilege to know. And he didn't have a PhD, but he was writing peer review, publishing through Routledge. It wasn't just writing his own self-published and selling on Amazon. He was actually a scholar, like an actual, and other PhDs are citing his work today. Like, and so I just want, like, that is, people need to know this is a possibility. It's rare. Like, you're a rare breed. You know that, right? You're a rare fucking breed.
I don't know about all of that. I think that, you know, if people had and underwent the same experiences that I went, not only would they be at my level, again, if you want me to put on my woke hat, they would just be me, you know? And so there's so it's more than just, you know, reading the books. It's just, you know, I've had the privilege of being able to even afford the books that I have.
That's true.
And that's sort of why, you know, so much about education just has it bleeds into every sort of other aspect of our social lives.
No, you're right. There is a degree of just being privileged to be in a position where you can learn stuff. You don't have to just go to a factory and work all day.
I want to be able to go and release the videos that I do, because when it comes to like reconstructed ancient Egyptian pronunciation, that's all in books. And not only that, It's all in books that were made 200 years ago that are very hard to access on the internet, and no one cares to read about them anyways. And so this is exactly what I'm trying to do. You know, and I feel as though I've and people have told me this, that I've inspired many people to go and actually pursue historical linguistics themselves, and actually and get into these sort of courses. And so I'm very thankful that I've been given the ability to do that, to inspire.
You and I, if you're in LA, you and I should hang out, by the way, because, you know, Neil sent me your stuff at one point. This was like a year ago. And I was like, dude, I watch all of his stuff. Like I was already.
Yeah, he was there. He knew who you were. I was like, of course.
Yeah, I live on Hollywood and Argyle. So.
Okay, I'll come visit. Let's like I sent you a friend request. So.
For sure.
So show my screen. I found it. I managed to get on the magical.
Oh, really?
So if you look for Saba, right, you can see it's Sabath, Savaoth, right? It's Savaum, Savar.
Yep. Oh, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the magical stuff right there. Boom.
So this is what he believes that line of Jesus is. It's something like this.
Sabakar. There's a close one. Sabakar.
Right? Sabakar.
Nah, there's no theta though, man.
No, it's that if it's not the same. The way he said. Look, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be fair right now. And in his mind, he's looking at this and it's got Sabak. And he's going,
right,
maybe they're just doing their own.
This is what he has when he points at that and says, "That's I've seen that." This is what he
exactly. I was going to say, but coming with a caveat now. When you say on a podcast that millions of people are going to watch, I've seen that exact phrase, you just lied. That is not just you kind of saying, "Oh, I said it wrong." No, you have to be clear on that. I've seen in the PGM similar words that look similar to this. That's how you should say it. The fact that he said, I've seen that exact phrase. I mean, we can go back and listen to what he said, right?
Well, you should play it to the end because there's a few more tidbits after that are probably worth discussing.
All right, let me just back up in a few seconds, though, because I want to hear
him and Aaron.
That is next, and I don't want to get guessing.
We're guessing about everything.
Yes,
guessing about everything.
I'm not. These are texts, and I don't want to guess. No. I have seen that expression in magical text. That is.
He just said, "I've seen that expression in magical text." To me, that's dishonesty. You could have said, "I've seen similar words that are weird like that," or something different. But the way he said it is a lie to me.
It's not Hebrew or Aramaic. There's no guesswork
he's quoting
here.
Him in Aramaic.
This is pure philology. There is no text that you have to back that up. There is no Hebrew doctrine. There's no Hebrew epics. There's no Hebrew plays. There's nothing outside of the Hebrew Bible. Nothing.
I think we've already disproven.
Outside of the Hebrew Bible, why wouldn't the Hebrew Bible count? If it's in Psalms, word for word in Psalms, and you have a Greek version and a Hebrew version that both say, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And by the way, the reason why that's in Psalms is in relation to the sack of Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And the prophets they're crying and they're lamenting, "God, why have you forsaken us? Why is our city being destroyed?"
As someone that is actually reading through the Psalms right now, the idea of God like ignoring or not bending their ear to the cries of the oppressed is an extremely common theme throughout the Psalms in general.
Exactly. And that's my point. So we know where this expression comes from. It's in the Psalms. Jesus is being quoted. Now, did Jesus really on the cross start singing Psalms? It's a possibility.
No, he's probably screaming in fucking pain.
Exactly. It's not likely. It's a possibility, but it's not likely. This is a narrative.
Who's crazy, but he's not built like that. Like
it's a narrative. It's a story. Mark is trying to make it fulfill Old Testament messianic prophecy. Jesus was the one being forsaken, just as people in Psalms were being forsaken. It's so clear that I'm almost like 99 point. I think you can almost, it's like Caesar coins type of certainty. Like we know this happened. We know this is the case. There's no speculation here. We know where it came from. The idea that all of that is wrong and is actually a secret magical papyri chant that we don't even have the exact copy of. We have Sabakar, or whatever. What is that? Let me just go back to that word again.
It's interesting. They have Sabaoth and Sabachar. So they have the key and the theta in different words.
Exactly. And it's cool. It's an interesting, like for Amen should write a paper expressing maybe there's a pun happening here. Maybe Mark knew some sort of magical phrase, and he also knew Psalms and wanted to make a little combination of the words. That could be a paper, maybe. I don't know, maybe not. But like the idea that we would have to ignore all the context of the Psalms and then go with your interpretation is just crazy. This is just nonsense.
It's pure philology.
Pure philology.
It's interesting how he co-opts the science that disagrees with him, and says that is not the real.
He's sitting across from a linguist.
Yeah. Want to keep going? A couple more minutes? How much time you got? Oh, we're at 2 hours. What do we think? Like 15 more minutes we'll go for?
Oh, I'm literally not even like I'm like totally chilling, man.
All right, cool. Let's go for
like another 2 hours, man.
There's a couple super chats. I'll wait up. Actually, this one right here, let's just hit this one now. Scoby1, thank you for the 666. Can you get back to the Hebrew is Greek? Can you explain? Do you know much about this book? Have you read the book? What do you think about it?
The only thing I know about this book is the cover, and that's where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to be reading that one. This is what you should do with people like I'm on here, is that you should just not talk to them. And you not talking to them isn't some like conceited like, oh, I actually won because you don't actually have the ability. It's like, no, I know how to organize my life, which is not and should not be based around doing debates online, right? Although I do debates online, but that's like because I get money from it. And so you have to think it's like, oh, I get money by being provocative online. Maybe I can go and make up a bunch of dumb conspiracy theories that'll get me invited on prominent podcasts. And so this is the best thing to do with people like these is just completely ignore them. And then, the attention they want will no longer be there.
I engage with people like this if they're being good faith and they're like, even if it's really dumb and bad, I'll have a back and forth with them. The minute they start being dishonest or gaslighting, you're done. You're blocked. You're done. I'm not wasting my time on someone like that. I did actually have a chance to read through a little bit of the Hebrew is Greek book, and it doesn't seem like he's not saying Hebrew literally came from Greek. It seemed like, and I haven't read the whole thing, but my understanding from the little bit I was reading through was that he was looking at certain words that he thinks might have cultural borrowing from Greek. So like Hellenistic era Greek or Hebrew or something like that. But I didn't read the whole thing, so I don't want to give it too much defense.
This is actually a very interesting subject, and something that we see quite a bit, where the meanings of Greek words, especially this is how translations can actually somewhat affect the native language, right? So let's take, for instance, a translation that Arthur Golding did of the Metamorphoses in the 1560s, right? This is a translation of an original Latin text that became the textual basis for a lot of literature in the Elizabethan period, such as Shakespeare and Spenser and all of those. And so this is a really good example of how translations from foreign languages can actually change the connotations of the words of another language. So that might actually be very interesting to read about.
So this author is Joseph Yehuda. He's a lawyer, self-taught linguist.
Well, oh, that's a red flag right there. Even though you're a self-taught linguist, so maybe I don't know.
Well, the thing is, none of the things that I express in these are all
you're going with the scholars, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I actually employ many more weasel words than Dan does, where it's like, it actually, I just say it flat out that it did sound like this. And then, I just use the evidence. And so that's just me being lazy, because like no one who actually argues in good faith.
No, but you give the nuance though. You're very nuanced though. You're not just saying this is the only way. Like I've seen you be very nuanced.
Yeah. This is how it works. This is how that works on a grammatical sense. But yeah.
But yeah, no, I do think, when Amin was saying that he knew the guy, I just had a feeling he's full bullshitting. By the way, do you have his like biography up in front of you or no? When did he live exactly?
Joseph Yehuda. Hold on a second.
Yeah, because I think he was like in the early 1900s.
Hebrew is Greek. Yehuda. Okay, so Hebrew is Greek. Originally published. Well, it was originally published in 1982 when I was born. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, no, maybe he does know him some. I don't know. He was born in 1900. He died in 1995. Maybe
so he was 95 years old when he died. So if Amin was in, didn't he say he was going to college in the 90s? So he knows this 90-year-old guy that published in the 80s. Like, I don't know, something about that story doesn't make a lot of sense. But
I don't know, when did he write his dissertation?
I had the opportunity of meeting up with as an esteemed Egyptologist, James Allen, who's responsible for a lot of really good work on Egyptian phonology, especially in the modern era, and especially in English, which is very sorely lacking. He was retired by this time, so I don't doubt that some old fart had a couple fanboys following around, misunderstanding his work, and so
Hillman's dissertation was from 2004.
So
1995.
He certainly wasn't an advisor for the dissertation.
Yeah.
Maybe just through the Ouija board.
He resurrected.
Yeah. some seances.
What do you got here?
This is Hillman's dissertation.
Oh.
2004.
Do you want to show him the peer reviewed from the journal, the one that you and I are making a video on?
The
toxicology. Yeah. You got to see this. This past peer review, this is what I meant earlier. Just because it's peer review doesn't mean it's right. This is an actual really serious journal, Toxicology and Antiquity. This is
Philip Wexler, and I reached out to Philip Wexler to inquire about the quality of his.
It's too far back, he said, right?
Process. No, he was just like, he doesn't know Greek, so like, how is he gonna peer review any of this stuff?
And that got me thinking about these crossover when you have a medical field crossing over to classics. It makes me wonder if there's some issues there. Like, is there?
Well,
I don't know.
This really speaks to the tragedy of the educated elite no longer learning Latin and Greek.
There you go.
Because that wouldn't even be a problem at all.
Exactly. Dude, wait till you see what he wrote. Just get to the good stuff and show him how he cites his source. This is this should be like taught in school of like how to not do peer review. I don't know what you would do. Engage in this.
Okay, so I have this like systematized in this Google Drive, so you can see like the primary.
Read his argument first, and we'll go to the source after that. Okay.
So his argument is that the dragon priestess herself, an immaculate virgin, only begotten child of God, was responsible within her cult for burning off the mortality of newborns. And so he's talking about real life, right? And this
so he makes his case.
Can you establish a little bit of context on
yes, he makes an argument that in ancient antiquity, in ancient Greece, there was a medical ritual of extracting drugs from prepubescent children through sex. That they're pre-ejaculate, even though prepubescent children don't ejaculate, which just makes no sense. They would use this as drugs, and then he says that, and then he cites his source. Look in the green, Apollonius Argonautica.
Argonautica.
So it looks like he cites a source for this. Now look what happens.
You're telling me
look what happens.
The sexist anti-witch on what the magical practice is. Okay, that's funny, but
look at this. When he cites, so you just read what he wrote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the source. Here's what it says. Achilles, he would always singe his mortal flesh in the flames of a fire in the middle of the night. But then during the day would anoint his tender body with ambrosia to make him immortal and make him. So, okay. His source went from his claim was they're extracting drugs from prepubescent children to.
Here it's that the dragon priestess was burning off the mortality of newborns. So basically he's citing Argonautica talking about singeing Achilles, saying that in real life these priestesses
this was a ritual.
Newborn. Yeah, but he's citing a mythological text to support something.
Now this one is compared to the other ones where he talks about the prepubescent children thing. The one in purple, right?
You mean further along?
Yeah, you got it. The one that's like complete. Like this one right here. This is the one that I thought you were showing. My bad. So he says in antiquity, ethnogenetic drugs, theogenetic drugs administered in concert with sexual acts were considered an avenue facilitating a mystery union of an initiate and a divinity, for the union was considered a divine marriage. And then he writes down, and then he cites his source. A good example of this is of the Yos rite. He just made up that term. Gamos, or sacred union, can be found in Euripides' account of the union between Apollo and Creusa. And he gives his source, Ion.
Oh my gosh! If you don't mind, I can actually go and get the original Greek.
Wait, I have it here though. But wait. He says Creusa inserts meadow saffron into her vagina.
But here's what's so weird about that. He writes that in his citation of his own argument. So what? Don't you need a source for that now? What is going on with the way he wrote this? That's what I would. Who peer reviewed this? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
But this is the passage where he says Creusa is inserting meadow saffron into her vagina, which here it's like escolpus, right? It's the folds of her gown. It's like it's there's
that's vagina, I guess. That means vagina. That means vagina. Crazy, right?
Yeah, no, that is crazy. I'm just wanting to maybe because the edition that I have also has a variant in the manuscripts.
Grab it. I would love to see if there's something different there.
This is the textual variant right here, so it's probably going to have the footnote Anthizin Chrysantavyi. So that is not potentially not original to the text.
You said Eon?
Yes.
Eon, and the citation is 887 to 9001.
887. Let's see.
Yeah, 887 to 901.
880. Okay, so we have, and then let me see. That's 890.
Well, and this is a motif of gathering flowers and putting them into the fold of your gown.
Yeah. No, that's.
And he just asserts that this is about a sexual act somehow.
Well, I mean, it's prior to her abduction and rape.
Yeah. I'm not saying there's nothing dirty about what's going to happen. Like, there's obviously the sex scene happening.
Apollo is going to violate her, but back to what he was claiming about it.
Yeah, right? there's no manuscript variant. That's what the Greek text says.
Well, this is the manuscript
that's the only one.
Anthizin Chrysantavyi. Right.
But that's a different line, though. That's reflecting the golden light.
Yeah. Well, it's this one right here.
Yeah.
So that reflecting the golden light may not be original.
So what I'm showing in you and the audience is that in this particular journal, he writes this crazy shit in the article. When he cites his source, he just kind of throws out a source, hoping no one's gonna check. Like,
yeah,
it has the appearance of an article. Yeah. It almost is like looks like a prank, like a April Fool's joke or something.
The thing is, though, even if Eon said that, even if Creusa was taking meadow saffron, and there's no meadow saffron in there, it's a culinary saffron. But even if she was taking meadow saffron, sticking it in her vagina, which would have made it like completely, like it would have made it burn. That wouldn't support what he's saying in the text. In antiquity, entheogenic drugs administered in concert with sexual acts were considered an avenue for facilitating a sacred union, a mystery union of an initiate and a divinity. This union was considered a divine marriage. He's claiming things about real life, but he's pointing at mythology for that. That's like Apollo and Creusa.
Yeah, that's the weird part, is that he's making the argument that he's making at the end of the day is that this was something that was happening as like a regular medical ritual. Like,
what did they do with the meadow saffron after like they take it out of the vaginas? Like, do they still
high on it?
They mix it with viper venom, and then they collect it in cups and take it like communion. That's
what he says. Yeah.
And they mix it with with purple dye, and it's called the burning purple.
So this is
where's the part where he mentions the purple
like
in here?
Girl bath water. Okay.
Yep.
Here it is.
Yep. Here it is right here. The burning purple. By the way, that's a phrase that never shows up anywhere in antiquity. The only time you do have the word is burnt purple when burnt. It's in the inactive form. Yeah. So, and then in that particular text from what's his name, Asclepiades, or is it
Dioscorides?
Dioscorides. It has nothing to do with anything ritual. It's all just medical. It has to do with like stomach ulcers or something like that. And then he just uses that phrase. But anyway, it says right here, burning purple, a mixture of Medea's vaginal excreta combined with ritual drugs, whatever that means, was also used as an ink One ancient source tells us that the golden, by the way, notice how there's no source for that. Like, what? Really? No citation there? One ancient source tells us that the golden fleece of the Argonauts, the famous mythical expedition leading to Jason, was a ram skin, upon which was written the formula for the cult drug compound used in the mystery rite, otherwise known as burning purple.
Just a small gripe. The way he writes is just terrible on a stylistic level. Like this is very ineloquent. Yeah. This is something like, in terms of like the expected audience, I would probably say his fans, and not people that are actually wanting to like understand the toxicology in antiquity. This looks like a Substack post. This looks like something I would find on Antigone Journal or like. But
that's why I'm shocked this got passed through peer review. It's crazy. This is the one. This is when people talk about peer review. I'll mention it. And look, the peer review doesn't always mean it was highly. It's not always correct. But anyway, this is the citation right here, though. He cites Kyle Ruck. Go back to that. And what does it actually say? This is Medea's special.
There is some overlap. I mean, he's not totally making it up. This was Medea's special formula for the chrism of Jason. For the chrism of Jason was remembered, right? A lambskin golden writing. And then the murex is a source of psychoactive DMT. And he cited somebody. So there is some, like you can trace the dependencies. You can see when he cites something, you can go to a source. You can see where he got it. Like
you can see where his mind is going. Right.
Yeah.
You can see where he pulls it. Well, it's similar to the Saba Cathone thing. You can see we found the word Saba Kar and we find Saba Oath. And in Amon's mind, he puts it all together. It's Saba Cathone. You can see what he's doing. It's just not rigorous. There's no rigor involved in this. What's so funny about that, what the irony about him and his methods is that he'll criticize Luke for using phrases like, we know pretty certain, or it's probably that this happened, and say, what, you're not certain? How you're not certain?
So I want to go and ask, because clearly this objection, like he's zooming in very, very closely, like to the individual word, but that doesn't necessarily mean what is his point? What is the conclusion to be drawn based off of not only this fact, but any other sort of objection that he has with the accounts in the Gospels? Or
Christianity is based off a mystery cult that involved the administer of Christing, the word Christ, anoint, or to dab yourself with these drugs that make you invulnerable to death and poisonous stings and serpent bites. And then he uses like Paul as an example. Paul in the book of Acts got bit by a serpent. He didn't die. Therefore, he was on the antidote. So his whole worldview is based on Jesus was a pedo who extracted drugs from children, and that's why he got arrested, because he was with a naked boy. And the term neonisko, he says, means prepubescent child, which it doesn't. That word, me and Stephen have done content on this. That word neoniskos, when it shows up in antiquity, how many sources did we find, Stephen? 100 at least. 100. We found 100 sources from antiquity that use this term for 20 to 29-year-olds. It means like young man. The best way to describe it, it's a young man. It's not an old man. It's not a child. It's not a teenager. It's a young man in his 20s.
So
and
you can
and
see here.
Amon argues that this word means prepubescent child, so that his worldview now, that he can apply that to his worldview, which means Jesus is a pedo who extracts drugs from children, and then he uses those drugs to give himself immortality. And then the Eucharist is basically giving you the immortality that he already figured out. That's Amon Hillman's work summed up as his whole body of work.
It really goes down to like the question of like, if this was true, like it would be so obvious.
And not only that, how does Christianity end up being this like very sober-minded, anti-homosexual, they're like don't have sex before marriage. Like, how would Christianity ending up that way if you think Christianity started off the exact opposite? You have to show how they diverted so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's simply, like I say, it's that sort of old mindset with language where they're seeing these surface level similarities with words, and they're not sort of demonstrating the systematic journey that mindset, that religion underwent, and the attestations of these sort of transitional. I mean, because it works the same way with fossils. We look at the transitionary stages, and some people will deny that we have the transitionary stages, but we do.
Right.
And,
we do.
and yeah, and so this is the exact same thing. It's just now applied to now we go to fucking little boy semen cult to to Christianity, and it's like, listen, the Catholic priests, I don't know what they're doing over there, but I don't think what they're doing is coming from an ancient magical cult.
Yeah, no, and it's true. No, you're right. It's an interesting thing you brought up, because there is that there is that like epidemic in the church of what causes that or whatnot. I have my own thoughts on that. Like being celibate might have something to do with that. Like not being allowed to marry, and maybe like there's something going on with that. But like he tries to argue that this is actually some secret thing going on in the church, and like if that's been going on for 2,000 years, I think we would find out by now. I don't think it'd be this secret occult thing, but we're catching priests in the act once in a while, like every couple of years we find in the news that this happens, but that never gets actually taken from this, or like you see what I'm saying? Like, where's the connection between the ancient part and this part?
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at.
It like I say, it's just like superficial similarities. Like I say, it's just like with Greek pronunciation, where it's the same letter, right? Therefore, it must represent the same sound throughout all dialects, throughout all time. But that's just not how letters work, and it's just not how the evolution of philosophies and religions work. I mean, there's always a transitionary stage. There's no sort of great man that's really, even Jesus himself was not a great man. According to like the great man theory that like, he's like single-handedly invented Christianity. No one person invented Christianity.
Right.
We all contributed to it, like with all religions.
Right. Yeah. It's an evolution of ideas, and he's just part of that evolution. He becomes central to it. Don't get me wrong, but there's a Hellenistic Judaism behind it that you get in writers like Philo of Alexandria, who has a very heavy emphasis on the Logos being the firstborn son of God, that type of theology. And then the life of Jesus and so forth. Go ahead, Stephen. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to mention that, this the denialism of like, modern linguistics and Indo-European roots. And, this stream actually exists in Greece. And Neil personally got to know somebody who's involved in this. So like this guy right here.
Oh yeah.
This Xyz, right?
Xyz,
He's interviewing this guy named Hadzianakis, who I believe is like a former electrician turned linguist, who is basically
it's always electrician.
Yeah, and this dude is just lecturing on and on. On
how Indo-Europeans fake.
Yeah, it's basically a whole cult. It's like a whole like Ammonite cult in Greece of people who reject modern linguistics because they don't want to believe that Greek descended from some Proto-Indo-European. Like they want to believe that Greek emerged. Like
I don't understand why you wouldn't want that.
I actually have encountered an article written by someone with very similar tendencies, and the way that they sort of came about it was through a complete lack of understanding of how systematic sound change works and how the entire methodology works in general.
You would be surprised, because this guy, he breaks down like this. Like there's another, like I copied this from a lecture of him because
that's the same guy who did this.
It's the same guy that did this. So he believes that basically because Hellas has this aspiration at the beginning, that originally there was a digamma there.
Pelasgians, right?
That he traces the origin of the word Hellas to Pelasgians, because he believes the Pelasgians were the
original
predecessors, and it's exactly what Hillman believes. And there's a guy named Stavros Vazdekis, who wrote this so-called etymological dictionary of ancient Greek. And it's this whole thing that just, he goes back to basically the ancient Greek grammarians. He completely discards modern linguistics, and he creates this whole system to basically refute the origin of like Indo-European, roots for Greek, and the whole idea that there was a pre-Greek substrate. This is a whole cult in Greece that they're, I'm saying cult,
I've been to Greece. I've been to Greece. Yeah. It's a cult. This would be an interesting book to read, because being able to compile the different grammar. Honestly, I need, if I'm going to write a thesis, it's going to be like all of the grammarians, like all of their works in like one big book, because it's just so scattered. So much about linguistics is just like scattered references. That's why I actually hate academic journals as a system, because how in the fuck are you going to have multiple Egyptology journals? Like, how am I supposed to search for anything with this like terrible system? It's like totally outdated. But yeah, do go on.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Just this playlist. This is, look at how many videos this guy does. It's all about Pelasgian origins of Greek. Like if Neil plays a little bit more of this debate, you're going to hear Amin say it too. Like, these guys would be best friends.
Oh yeah,
with Amin, because it's like but this is from their perspective, it's nationalistic. They have a nationalistic motive behind this. And this guy has written tomes, books like this thick, and people that know me and know that I'm, obsessed with Greek, like, they want me to like vet this, and it's so dense. I have the full PDF of this etymological lexicon. I can send it to you. And it's just like, I don't even know where to start with it, but you can,
I feel like you can very easily compare it with Bacchus, like just like the way that he organizes all of the entries versus something like this. But just to real quick go and take a look at the Wiktionary, so open source. But Hellas seems to be derived from the inhabitants of what's called the Dodona, the area around that, and it's a derivation of Heloi or Seloi. Yeah, the ultimate origin is unknown, possibly pre-Greek, more at Hellas. So let's talk a little bit about aspiration, rough breathing coming from digamma. It's possible. This is, you can go and take a look. This is actually one of the big mysteries about Greek as a language, is because we aren't able to like fully predict when, for instance, an initial wa becomes daseya, or when it becomes like completely dropped, i.e. like it's preserved in Homeric Greek and then it's dropped in the Alexandrian edits because the digamma is no longer used.
Why does it have an F? Like what is the connection between wa and the F? Like how does the Latin F have the same character as the ancient Greek digamma?
You mean V?
No, F.
It looks like an F.
But why does the Latin layout? So well, we have to remember that the ancient Greek alphabet as we know it today had many regional variants that weren't fully adopted until many centuries after the Greek script arrived in Rome.
Oh, so it's just the same symbol and they're using it differently.
They're using it differently, yeah. So we see this like this is very common with like letters like ki and psi and xi, that oftentimes like actually switch their phonetic values. So like ki can be used as a xa, which is why X is a xa sound. This is just another example.
Because in Magna Graecia, that was the letter that the Greeks used in the south of Italy.
Yeah,
that's why our X is xa.
Yeah, but then the variety that we know today, the ki was used for the ka sound, and so that's just an example.
In Phoenician, it's the het like ket. Yeah,
but tell me this. So when we have we know that oinos started with a digamma originally, right? We know that, but then a word like historia didn't have a digamma, but then
it had rough breathing.
Yeah, but
it has rough breathing.
It has rough breathing.
Is that a sign of an ancient digamma? Is that what that means?
Well, Bacchus speculates on whether or not there was originally a digamma in the root word that underlines the word historia.
So the derivation, at least I know for historia, is it comes from a tor suffix word, weed tor in Proto-Indo-European. So this is like the one who knows. It comes from the root wade, which means to see. So this is where we get words like video, veda, wit.
Yeah.
Vidor is like the one who knows, and then vidoria is like a abstract derivation. So like the things about the one who knows, which is history.
By the way, let me just credit or this is a good question, so people think I'm not like flip-flopping on this. Yes, the Pelasgians are the word that the ancient Greeks refer to as their predecessors. So Proto-Greeks, Homer will use the word Pelasgian. I think Herodotus uses the word Pelasgian. It's all over the Greek sources. They talk about the Pelasgians. That's not the same as That's not the same as where language comes from.
Wait, hold on. What do they mean by Israeli scholars?
I don't know.
Do they think I'm Israeli? That's so funny.
No. I get called Jewish all the time. I'm just used to it now.
No,
apparently
what you should do?
Apparently, I'm getting paid by Israel or something for.
You know what you should do? You should reply that actually they're the Jew being paid by Israel.
I know.
And then that's when they get really mad.
What? You really call me that? No. But I've never, ever suggested that Proto-Indo-European wasn't the origin of the linguistics. That's always been one of the big...
Yeah, script and language are very different things.
Yeah, and culture as well. Like whoever the Pelasgians were to the Greek sources, I just basically label that as like the people before the Greeks. Maybe the Mycenaeans are the Pelasgians. I don't know how we can prove that. But I've even heard some people say that the Philistines might have some sort of root connection to Pelasgian, Pelasgian.
Well,
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
It's a bit of a mystery because there is no we know the names of cities in Mycenaean Greek like Pylos and Argos and what have you. We don't actually have that many names for the endonyms of the people that live there, and so we're not able to find a Mycenaean Greek equivalent of, or at least don't quote me on this, but a Mycenaean equivalent of Pelasgoi.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's an issue. That word doesn't show up in any of the pre-Greek sources. It's only in the classical period where Greeks are going, the Pelasgian ancestors of us. So what do you do with that? Is it just the word that they use for the pre-Greeks? Maybe. I'm fine with, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Well, then what is pre-Greek? Is pre-Greek the language? Okay. And something very interesting about Robert Backus is that he is able to reconstruct the pre-Greek roots and suffixes of many of the words in classical Greek, which I think is very, very interesting, because I wouldn't imagine pre-Greek to be just one language.
But explain the difference between pre-Greek and Proto-Greek.
So
the substrate. Explain what the substrate is.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the original inhabitants of mainland Greece. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about too. So a lot of words in Greek, and when I say a lot, it's quite a bit. Have a lot of words in Greek don't have very clear Indo-European origins, and also have variations across dialects that don't seem to fit very well according to the standard Indo-European sound changes. And this sort of substrate, or this source of all these different words, like I think, oh gosh, you'll have to give me some examples here. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but these sort of words are considered pre-Greek. That's what they're called by linguists, especially like Robert Backus, who's been a sort of foremost scholar in trying to reconstruct all this.
Isn't there the word for moon that you have
Selena?
Moon, and Selena would be Greek, right? Because that's not Indo-European.
No, so the word for the Indo-European root for that would be mes, or men.
Men, I think, or men, mace. Yeah, it starts with an M.
This is it. Show my screen.
So this would be a good example, right?
These are the Greek words that are derived from the pre-Greek substrate, the ones that are if we call this Pelasgian, that could be a word we can use.
And then but it's
not Indo-European, is what I'm saying.
This is not Proto-Greek. Yeah.
I want to go and make a point here, very interesting, where Aman was talking about, does this have a Greek vibe? Does this have a Greek essence? Yeah. Do these words have a Greek essence? Well, I mean, as someone who analyzes the roots of Proto-Indo-European and can easily derive these things, no, it doesn't.
Right.
These words
isn't that ironic? Because they're actually more Greek than Indo-European, which is from different place. But like
all of these, and so like you look at like just even like the syllable structure and like all the endings and like the way that it's just, this doesn't scream to me like the sort of regular sort of machine-like word derivation process that Proto-Indo-European has. And you can see these are all referring to exotic.
What period is this? Because Mycenaeans are adopting Indo-European language, right?
All right, that was the wrong list.
The Mycenaeans were Greek. The Mycenaeans were Greek-speaking peoples.
Yeah, let me.
So they were. So we're talking about in the Minoan period or even before that, right?
Yeah, the Minoans. Yeah, I don't have any doubts that we have a lot of Minoan words here.
But just to be clear, these words that are theorized as being part of these are ancient. The previous list you were seeing, those were modern Greek terms. These are the ancient Greek terms that are derived from the pre-Greek substrate. The idea here is that these are not native Greek words, like the ancient Greek language that inherited these words. They didn't flow from their Mycenaean ancestors. They came from the original inhabitants of that region. They are different from Proto-Greek. Proto-Greek would be the
is the reconstructed common ancestor of all of the Indo-European Greek dialects, of which Mycenaean Greek is a very early sort of.
It seems like
descendant.
Os is a very common what do you call it? Ending.
But this is a massive list.
There are very specific morphemes that you can actually pick out that Robert Backus actually picks out and says actually all of these similar words in the pre-Greek words actually are the same morpheme. They're a part of the same word derivation process.
Did I just say the word cannabis? What did that word say? Cannabis?
Yeah, so cannabis.
There it is.
This is cannabis. Well, it's a different word though. This is cannabis.
Yeah, cannabis is a double nu, and then it's also an I stem. But that does not come from pre-Greek, as far as I know. That's a regular wander word. Yeah.
So that's just a really cool coincidence.
Wait a minute. No, sorry. This is an alternate form of cannabis with two N's. This just has one N. That's the reason it's different.
Cannabis.
Cannabis. So alternate forms cannabis, but yeah, it is connected to cannabis.
There you go. But yeah, it's related to the word canvas, to the word hemp. If you look at again like the Grimm's law, the K to the H, the Ka to the Ha, cannabis, hamapa, it's a very similar pattern. And so, but you can just tell, at least I can tell when a word looks like pre-Greek to me. Like all of these are like they're hitting all of the alarm bells. And so like if you're able to understand etymology, you're able to know if something is like an actual like Greek word that is inherited from the original Proto-Indo-European system versus something that's not. And this is interesting. It's very interesting.
Boeotian has a digamma. This is unaspirated in some alternate form, and then what came down to us in the word history is aspirated with an H.
We would have to go and take an individual look at where all of these words are attested, and whether or not we also have to make a distinction between whether or not these words are found on inscriptions or if they have actually been preserved in the manuscript tradition, because the words that end up being preserved in the manuscript tradition oftentimes undergo overcorrections, much like what the Alexandrian editors did with the removal of digamma in Iliad recitations. And so we have to be very sort of specific about where these words are actually coming from. But on a phonological level, and in terms of the rules that's going on here, it makes sense. Except there's one thing here. So you notice here, Proto-Indo-European and the difference between Proto-Hellenic, right? We see the A. We see the A in Proto-Indo-European, the EY, versus the short E in the Proto-Hellenic form. Now, the change from D to T to S to T is fine. That's actually expected. But A should give us epsilon iota. Now, what this could be is it could very well be that tor, as by analogy, elicits what's called the zero grade, wherein the weid becomes weed, and that's fine, okay. But then why is that syllable accented? If that was what was happening, we would see the accent on the other syllable, because oftentimes the placement of the accent determines, you know, the ablaut. I don't know if I'm throwing a bunch of like words at you, but
no, that makes sense. Yeah,
it's the accent being on the first syllable as opposed to the second one is
there a long
very
vowel at the
interesting.
end? Is there a long vowel at the end? Maybe that's,
omega is long.
That's probably why.
Yeah, and so, but the thing is that it again, it could, by analogy, the early Greeks could have like heard "weidor" and be like, well, you know, this "dor" ending. I mean, we usually do the zero grade for these roots. Why don't we just do like "weidor," right? But then again, that accent would be on the omega, and not on the iota. And so I'm.
But the thing is that Historia is attested, you know, this is aspirated, but there is no digamma here, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that a lot of the digammas are reconstructed by kind of reading through Homer, right? We don't have...
And so obviously Homer didn't invent this word. So.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that what Ammon accuses, you know, linguists of doing is speculating and making stuff up because they don't have texts. But we don't have a lot of texts that attest to digamma. A lot of that is theoretical.
Exactly. That's such a good point. He knows about the digamma reconstruction, but why is he cool with that? Why does he love that? I don't know.
Yeah, you would have to question.
And by the way,
that is a total double standard.
I was when I didn't even tell you this. Aram. I was learning Greek from Ammon years ago when I was friends with him. He was teaching me Greek, going through Hansen and Quinn. He has a very systematic way of doing it. I'd say he's pretty decent at learning the basics. But as I learned more and I started to transcend, I can tell now that he's not that good. He's not as good as people think.
If you want, we can go and take a look at my latest TikTok video, which it actually tries to address some of these things that would regularly be seen as irregularities, but actually make perfect sense if you analyze it through etymology.
Can you watch TikTok if you don't have an account?
Yeah, you can. Let me go and see if I can. Yeah, I'll send you the link real quick.
What I was going to say was, he loves to do his dative with the subscript, with the iota subscript. He loves like toy. He likes to pronounce it toy. Like instead of toe, you know how like the dative pronoun definite article for singular masculine is there it is right there. He likes to put that. He likes to reconstruct. So he knows how to reconstruct ancient language. He understands the concept because he pronounces that toy.
Well, the thing is he probably doesn't even. I think the simple solution here is that he probably doesn't know the process that gave us the knowledge that you should pronounce that iota subscript.
That's probably true. But but my point is, it's a reconstruction based on the iota subscript to say toy instead of toe. And that's
but it can be, the iota can be on the line though. You know.
But I would push back at him and say, why are you okay with reconstructing that when
it's a total double standard?
It's a total double. Exactly. You get my point.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But let's go and take I have a video sent here in the chat. I don't know if this is. I just have it under studio chat. But this is addressing how to grammatically deduce the pronunciation of eu.
All right, let me share my screen. Oh, you got it up. You got it up already? Cool.
I pulled it up, but can you hear it?
No.
No, because I don't think I can.
Yeah, I think you actually.
I got it. I'll pull it up. I don't know why I didn't let you.
It's because it's in a separate tab and I can't play the audio.
All of this is basically meant to show that like the evolution of pronunciation is very systematic. It's not just like some guessing thing, right? So, but do continue. Yeah.
Odysseus says Odysseus instead of something like Odysseus, like in modern Greek. And we know this for quite a few reasons. Firstly, Odysseus is what's known as a diphthong stem noun, where in between the root odus and the grammatical ending s, you have this diphthong eu. But this diphthong seems to completely disappear in other forms of the noun, such as in the genitive Odysseos, where instead of the epsilon, we have an eta, and the upsilon is nowhere to be found. So why is that? Well, ancestrally, this derives from a long diphthong form eu, so that, for instance, the nominative is eus.
And so the only difference, if you pause,
however, Greek doesn't preserve.
The only difference is you can see with you can have it be there. The only difference between the case forms is just the nominative is s, and then the genitive is os. So it's still eu in both the nominative and genitive forms in pi. So
yeah, so it just kind of condenses into one vowel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but it'll explain further.
Okay.
And the genitive is eos. However, Greek doesn't preserve the long diphthong, so that original eus is simply shortened to eus, with a short epsilon instead of the long eta. However, that length distinction is preserved in the other case forms, because those endings begin with vowels, and that's very important, because now the w sound, or the digamma, is no longer part of the diphthong, but is a consonant in its own right, which then gives us the archaic forms odouseus and odousewos. And so with this in mind, it makes sense that digamma and upsilon are basically representing the same sound. The only difference is that digamma is a consonant and that upsilon is a vowel.
Yeah.
Homer would have pronounced
That's crazy.
So this is a really good example of how you can deduce the pronunciation of ancient languages entirely from the grammar. And like, because these irregularities, they didn't just come from nowhere. It's a part of a very systematized process where the old system becomes more worn down, but is nonetheless present because it's continuously used. And so that's where you get these irregularities like am, are, is from a regular Proto-Indo-European esmi, esi, and esti, where it's merely the mi, si, and ti that's attached to this root s. And it's totally like regular. And so that's where we get irregularities from, and like being able to study that and being able to put that out in the world is I think very important, especially to combat misinformation like this, because people go and enter and like listen to these podcasts with the same mentality and the same mindset of understanding linguistic evolution as Amen does. And so if you don't even have the philosophy to engage with these discussions, then you're just going to be hopelessly lost. And so that's sort of what I want to do.
But that's what I noticed with a lot of this discourse is they almost, it's like the ignorance is what drives a lot of the confidence in being correct. Like some of this, like, I think Amen just doesn't understand like the idea that like language existed before writing. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't know that, but like, I don't think he really grasps
it serves as the foundation for a lot of his ideas without him knowing it.
Right. Because he kept pushing Luke, give me Hebrew text. Hebrew didn't exist for the 3rd century. Show me some text. And he was like, well, here's an inscription. Here's a fragment of like a papyri. Here's and he's like, but those aren't full text, so they don't count. And it's just like, wait a minute. Are you saying that like people were writing inscriptions on stones and leaving pieces of papyri in the ground, but they weren't speaking and writing Hebrew? Like, how does that even make sense?
I mean, you can't imagine a scenario in which those papyri exist without it's much like coins, where you can gather a lot of information from very fragmentary sources, where it's like, it can't really be any other form unless it must have existed in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what we're seeing here.
Even Ugaritic, and you know a lot about Ugaritic, don't you? You've done some videos. Yeah. That's very close to Hebrew. Absolutely. And not only that, but we actually see direct poetic a poetic form that's actually like in both. Yes, the slaying of Lotan, the wriggling serpent, the writhing serpent. And so how were the Hebrews able to go and have this exact phrase, even if the Ugarit fell in the Bronze Age, right? Yes. Yeah.
And so this isn't something that you can just hand wave away. It's much like the kleos in quitom, the fame everlasting in Proto-Indo-European. These cognate words, this cognate sort of idea, you can't just hand wave that.
And a lot of people don't know. Actually, I brought this up earlier, where the consensus will say something and like amateurs will take it and run with it in another direction without knowing the nuances. For example, in this particular case, scholars like Gad Barnea, Jonathan Adler, and what's the other one who I had on recently with the linguist that you introduced me to?
Timothy.
Yeah. How am I forgetting his name right now?
Chalamet.
Yeah. But anyways, he wrote a great book about dating biblical Hebrew, and a lot of scholarship coming out recently has been pointing to the Hebrew Bible being not as old as we thought, and definitely, if not composed, finished in the Hellenistic period. That doesn't mean there's not. Yeah, doesn't mean there's older versions, So a lot of times people will take that and go,
Ian Young.
Ian Young. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Ian Young.
With regards to like the Old Testament, I mean that's just them like thinking that the Old Testament is just like one text that was completed on like a specific day in a specific year.
Exactly.
That's not how it works.
And I'm very vocal of pushing back against people like dating the Old Testament to like 900 BC or something, and like
only very specific parts, very small
exactly.
parts.
There are layers in the text that are definitely way older and archaic, and we can analyze the linguistics and we can match it up to like stuff in the Ugaritic sources, like you just mentioned. You have the Ketef Hinnom scroll, which lines up very closely to what's in Numbers.
Exactly.
There's no denying that. So, but what happens is because all these scholars are coming out and saying, we should date the Hebrew Bible to like probably like 3rd, 4th century BC. What they're talking about is the finishing final product of the Bible. We're not talking about like the poetry behind it.
We have to remember that a book is only an idea. It's not the text itself. It's the idea that they represent one body of work. So a book is very much so an idea, and so the idea of the Old Testament was still actually being talked about at the turn of the era. And so we have to realize that so much about the way that people compile and authoritize texts and say and prioritize one text over other. And this entire process is universal across all civilizations. It's always based on the rhetorical goals of the collector. And we have to analyze those. We can't just take all of these different nuances and just like make it flat in a 2D image. You have to realize the depth of what you're really doing here.
Yeah,
So.
and see, look, and I already knows one person that doesn't really understand what I just said there. I'm not saying biblical Hebrew equals Canaanite or Ugaritic or Phoenician, but what I'm saying, we have a language family. We have what would you call them, like siblings in a language family, kind of like
the cognate languages.
Cognate languages, similar to like different Greek dialects, or comparing Portuguese to Spanish or whatever. And so what I'm saying is, if Hebrew was invented out of Greek in the 3rd century BCE, how do you explain the cognates with Aramaic and Ugaritic and Phoenician? And
you also have to realize that the Semitic languages of the 9th centuries BCE is also very different than the Semitic languages of the 3rd century BCE, because they had undergone linguistic evolution. And
just like Mycenaean is not the same as classical Greek.
And so this is
I can show my screen. I have a timeline of the Hebrew language. So like you can see 15th century, 14th century. If you like pull
For some
up
reason
my,
it's not. I got it now. For some reason it wasn't coming up. There it goes.
Wait, 15th century BC is
BC, 15th century, 14th century, 13th century. There is no
Hebrew.
Like Proto-Hebrew probably existed in this period. We just don't have any evidence for it.
Because language came from somewhere. It didn't just come up it didn't just get invented from people sitting in a room.
But these 16th century, 11th century BC artifacts, the Ophel Pithos, the Zayat stone, we don't know what language this is. Like it could be Canaanite, it could be Hebrew, it could be Phoenician. So it's not until the this period, like the 9th century, the 8th century, like now you're getting like sort of actual identifiable Hebrew inscriptions.
I would explain it, and I'm an amateur, and I'm not an expert, and there's probably a lot of nuance, but I guess I would throw out as a starting point, the way Alexander the Great spreads Greek around is kind of how Sargon of Akkad spreads the Semitic Akkadian language around the Middle East, which then spawns off into different splinters of Semitic languages.
Well, Akkadian is actually its own branch of Semitic called East, but the inhabitants of the Akkadian Empire also spoke these Northwest Semitic languages, and so that politically, Sargon did spread these languages, but the language that Hebrew came from is not Akkadian.
Well, was there already Semitic languages in the Levant before Sargon?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then okay.
There are Semitic languages spoken in like Ethiopia and Africa. Like no.
Well,
I
knew. That I knew. That's where it came from. And I'm saying, like, I think from my understanding, it's like Sargon and the Akkadians come up and conquer like the Sumerians and whatever, and then they spread all this culture around as they conquer more stuff?
No, I would say that the people that would eventually become like the Hebrews were not necessarily of that polity. If now you might correct me, since some other people might, but as far as I know, they were very similar to the Arab Bedouins. They had an oral culture. They were pastoral nomads.
Nomadics. Yeah.
And so it wasn't until later that this oral tradition, which may include such wonderful hits as the Song of the Sea and the Song of Moses and stuff like that, it wouldn't be until many centuries later that they would be written down for the first time. And so even like the earliest texts, the earliest written texts that we have, doesn't necessarily mean it's a cutoff point, because we have to remember, again, the language came first and then the writing. So
exactly. Yeah. The point is like, even though there's different dialects, there's different Semitic languages, they existed long before people started writing it down in that region.
Mm-hmm.
And just the same way Indo-European languages spread around in the north.
Exactly.
You know, it's just a different language family. So you can't just invent Hebrew from Greek.
We actually have direct attestations of Northwest. No, this is another thing that people actually, no one knows about this. There is a language there is a Northwest Semitic language that is attested in the cuneiform. It is not Akkadian. It is not anything. It is a Northwest Semitic language, very closely related to Hebrew, but it's actually written in the syllabic cuneiform as opposed to the
I think I remember hearing
alphabetic
about this.
cuneiform. It's Amorite. But
Yeah.
It's so interesting because the tablets were colloquial. They were like, oh, let's go and get a drink. Let's go to the restaurant. Or can I get some bread? And so you have to imagine that there's an already existing speaker base. Yes, these first ones.
Ezekiel says that his father was an Amorite or something like that. There's like some references to them being related to Amorites.
And so these are very, very early Northwest Semitic languages. They have the case endings. They have they have the initial. They have like the retaining of th and the instead of the later Begek Kefet system, in which the thes and ths are allophones of t and da. These retain the original th and the of Proto-Semitic. But much like Ugaritic does, but it's a different variety. But yeah, no, these tablets directly attest to a speaker base in the Levant that was speaking these very archaic Northwest Semitic languages that existed before Hebrew as like a language of the church.
Look at this right here. I just want to highlight your ancestry. This is from Ezekiel 16. Your ancestry and birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Your father an Amorite, your mother a Hittite. Almost as if biblical authors were aware of this cultural connection with the Amorites.
Just a slight note with this specific verse: a Hittite. Now, the way that we use, it's a different ethnic group, than the Hittites of like Anatolia. So
but I will say this though: the Hittites, when you look at the Hittite Empire at its height, they're in Syria. They're right there next to the Canaanites. So there might be some.
Well, the thing is that the Hittites actually get their name from a foreign source. And so they're probably the Hebrews, and then like the Hittites, like the Indo-European peoples, are probably getting it from a common source. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyways.
But yeah, no. Yeah.
I enjoyed this conversation. We've been talking for 3 hours. So
we have been talking for 3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any last questions? There's one more.
Let's go and let's do the question and answers.
Yeah, there we go. So this is from Thought on Fire 222. Thank you for the $10. The documentary Chematica suggests that alphanumeric values of languages were reversed or altered during the transition from ancient languages to English and other modern Western languages. Thoughts? I have no idea.
So I know exactly what he's saying here. We have to first. So basically, he's talking about the role that gematria has in linguistic evolution, and we have to first realize that numbers aren't real. Numbers are just like
metaphysics.
every other word. It's just something that we name onto something that just is, right?
Yeah.
The only reason why we can say that these are two weed vapes is because you realize that both of these are trying to be the same thing, and that's a thought, right?
Yeah.
No matter, like, that is an opinion. And so gematria. So also gematria, not real. It's not like a thing in the Hebrew Old Testament. That's like a later medieval tradition. The original
it also
authors,
comes from Greek Pythagoreanism.
Yes,
that's why gematria is a Greek word.
Yeah, and so
gematria.
Yeah, this is because especially in the way that, like, for instance, with names, right? These names existed before the alphanumeric representation that they had, right? And so, like. And
they're just doing alpha 1, beta 2. What is it? The next one? Yeah, they're just.
The problem is that they're expecting
eight singles, 8 doubles, and 8 triples. That's what they're doing.
They're assuming that the people are doing that without being literate. So, like,
that's not happening.
And so, I would say
that's almost impossible.
read books,
unless we live in a simulation. If we're in a simulation, then that could be true.
This is, well, you know, I am like a ones and zeros hardcore determinist.
Really?
I know.
Nice. That's fascinating.
Am. Because the thing is, it's like, you know, if we really like zoom in, like past the atoms, past the quarks, past everything. I was just having this
conversation with someone recently.
It's all
nothing.
It's string theory.
It's all emptiness, empty void.
Something must be or not be in a certain moment in space time. And so
by the way, this is the one reason why I've never fully became an atheist, because it's very weird when you can break down to the subatomic realm, almost like there's something behind it all. I don't know. Not saying I'm not being a dogmatic Christian or anything about it, but I'm just saying I'm leaving it open.
The force of anything is the underlying force of everything. I don't think that there is any sort of like complicated rules to the universe at all. I think it's one rule that has become so incredibly complex because of time but that's like that's a separate tangent that we can do. But is there anything else about this that you want me to look at with the podcast?
We had one more super chat. As the actor on stage were male.
Oh, well, that's a very good use of $2.
Thank you for the 2, Scobie.
This is probably him trying to make a reference to something that we were talking about, and unfortunately,
I think it's something to do with the comedy or tragedy we were talking about while we were referencing.
And he's probably very pissed that
he's probably watching football. He's watching the NFL football right now.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but
no, this has been I've been enjoyed this conversation, and just so everyone knows, there's links for your YouTube and your Instagram in the link. Do you want me to put your TikTok in there as well?
Yeah. TikTok is where you're going to find all of my latest videos. Aram Natzorkhang, ARUMNATZORKHANG. But yeah, no.
I just added your TikTok to the list, so
perfect.
You can find that now.
I like to do videos on ancient pronunciation. I like to explain the unexplainable, and actually make it somewhat boring. and
what'd you think about my thumbnail, the Logos Magus?
Yeah. No, it's good. I saw the thumbnail. It was fantastic.
I had the caduceus and all that. Or
a little bit of a background on that photo before you go into too much. But that was taken on New Year's Eve, where I was dressed up as a wizard, and some guy took like a film photo of me. And I think it went out really well. But yeah,
it looks good. It looks good.
I enjoyed your video of your book collection that you got in Greece. I wanted to mention that you said that it was difficult to find a copy of the Septuagint. If you go to next time you're there in Athens, go to a bookstore called Osotir. This is a great edition of the Septuagint that has like interlinear. It's by Trebellas, so it has the original Septuagint and then the modern Greek paraphrase, diglot. It's really. You mentioned you were trying to find it and you couldn't get a good edition.
Well, okay, so and I really hate to be like this, but when I mean a good edition, I mean one that is like has no modern Greek.
Yeah, but you can find that at a bookstore called O Sotir. You can find all kinds of them.
Yeah,
I got this from that, and it's got modern on one side and ancient on the other. This wouldn't fit. This is not what you want.
I managed to find mine at this this one place near the. It was like a massive like road full of bookstores. I saw like the crazy scene. Like, you know how expensive these Oxford like classical texts can be.
Oh yeah.
I got these for like 10 euros each.
Wow.
And I was finding like 100-year-old Euripides. I was finding like all sorts of fucking crazy ass shit, man.
Yeah, everything you see here, that's all Oxford, that's all Penguin, that's all like I think like just a bunch of stuff. But everything I buy is used. Yeah. Nothing I bought. Very rarely I buy a brand new book if I can't find anything. I buy all
these were new. These were new.
That's
books.
all. Yeah, that's a huge. Oxford, that's like, a big
and it's
deal.
Like,
yeah.
I was like mind blown. So guys, if you ever want to go and get cheap books, it's probably honestly easier to fly to Greece and cheaper, and then just get the books there, and then just like literally fly back, and you'll probably save more money.
I'll go there with like one suitcase packed inside another suitcase, and then when I come home, I have 2 suitcases.
I really wish I did that. I was really like I was wearing like hella clothes around me, so that way the weight limit of the.
You can always send a box back while you're there. You can always mail yourself.
And you can go to politia.com, and the shipping rates are reasonable if you want to order books from Greece. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
A lot of my,
By the way,
comes from
it is interesting to look at the modern compared to the ancient, and it makes you realize how different ancient Greek is to modern Greek.
It really is.
It's literally a translation of a text. It's not the same text. Like it's crazy.
Well, in Greek, they call it it's paraphrasis in Greek. It's like a paraphrase, but it really depends on what register they're targeting. So if you translate from ancient Greek into Katharevousa, then by definition, you're just lightly like modern.
It's a metaphrasis.
Metaphrasis. And then if you're going to translate it to Demotic Greek, like the folksy Greek, that is like the basis of standard modern Greek, you're going to completely overhaul it. You're going to change the syntax. You're going to change the vocabulary. And so there's like conservative translations, and then there's like liberal translations.
And then that's just. It's because, just because they're both called Elliniki, it's one name. It's a name that has a lot of different stuff behind it. It's not just it's like Arabic, it's like Chinese, and so that's just an interesting sort of aspect of diglossia, is like, when does it become a new language? But that's sort of what I study. So if you guys like that, be sure to go and check out my stuff. And
Oh, look what I found from my, this was from a long time ago when I had Amun on, and he was explaining to me the roots for Sabakathani. I just had these in my notes from, he's got Saba Zo, and then he wrote, and he sent me this too, in an email. I had it loaded up.
Yeah,
Saba Saba.
But that's coming from the Patmos Codex of Demosthenes, and it's cited in like I dug down into all those references.
Oh, so you're okay.
Yeah, just to figure out why, and it's coming from that source that I'm saying. What they're pointing at these Thracians who are worshiping Sabazius, and they're saying they're saying Saboy, Eboy Saboy, and they're just saying like that's the way the barbarians talk. We say it differently. It's not
I see.
Greek.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, this has been great, and I hope you had enjoyed it. And you've just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis.